Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. This is the time and place for the June 5, 2023 regular school board meeting for Marshalltown Community School District. Welcome to those of you joining us here in person. Welcome to anybody viewing us live on the live stream, or anybody who might be watching later on. Before we get going, we'll do introductions for the board members here this evening. We'll start to my left, Karina Hernandez, Sarah Faltis, and Leah Stanley. To my right, we have Zach Wall, Bonnie Lowry, and Jan McGinnis. Seated here at the center table, we have Dr. Theron Schutte, the superintendent of schools, Randy Denham, our board secretary, and I am Sean Heitman. Let's see, what else? It's been a couple of weeks, so I'm a little rusty on the announcements this week. If you're here to give public comment, we've got a pink sign-up sheet there on the speakers table. We'd ask that you sign up there. Please understand that you will be given 5 minutes to address the board. Iowa law prohibits the discussion of specific employees of the district or their job performance. Please also understand that in accordance with board policy, board members will not respond to comments made so that we can maintain compliance with the open meetings laws. With those things out of the way, would you all please join me in reading the mission statement of the Marshalltown School District? Well, you don't have to stand, Jen. You certainly can. We develop learners who have the knowledge, skills, and positive mindset to successfully pursue a meaningful future through personalized learning experiences. And now stand if you can and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any changes to the agenda tonight?
Yes, we've got a number of amendments. 2.04 interagency agreements and contracts. There's an agreement with All American Publishing in order for the high school to receive t-shirts through sponsorship that they, I think, for the cheerleaders to be able to pass out to students and or patrons of the activities. BEJJ Visual Design Agreement for Marshalltown High School Band Department to have choreography for the marching band in the amount of $1,400. And then there's a contract with Responsive Classroom to provide professional development on August 14th in the amount of $3,900. Under gifts, grants, and bequests, we received notification, although we haven't gotten the official letter to date, that we received a Stronger Connections grant that Mr. Kretzinger wrote to support our efforts in social, emotional, and behavioral health. That amount is $335,156, and that funding will be available to us through September of 2026, I believe.
It starts this coming September and June 30th, 2025.
25. And then we also did table or remove the safety and security project list. That will come back on June 19th with financial cost estimates associated with things that have been identified thus far. The original list didn't have that, so.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Move to approve.
Second.
Lowry, Faltis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Abby?
Okay. Good evening, everyone. So for recognitions tonight, welcome John and Kinsey Stalzer. Marshalltown Community School District wishes to recognize our local community business partner, Stalzer Photography, as a career readiness partner. This recognition honors Stalzer's outstanding support and service to our students, their parents, and our staff as we strive to make all Bobcats career ready. The human capital support through volunteering their time, talent, and resources for betterment of the Marshalltown Community School District is commendable. John and Kinsey Stalzer will be accepting the recognition. I know for me personally, they have been a big help with the website, getting the artwork together, taking amazing photographs of our Bobcat students, our buildings, just really giving a good picture, no pun intended, of our district. So thank you, you guys, for all of your help.
Thank you. The best part of this is we get to take their picture, right? Oh, it's been a while since we've made one of these recognitions. Thus far, it's been the big dogs, Emerson, Lennox, Marshtown Company, some Raycom, and so you're now within a stellar group of supporters. But I know, even though I wasn't here when your own children came through, you guys have been amazing Bobcats and Bobcat supporters, and you've supported in many ways that people don't even know about. So very well deserved. We greatly appreciate your continued support.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. And Abby? What? All right. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Moving to the consent agenda, we've got minutes from the May 16th regular meeting and special meeting held on May 19th. Dr. Ryan, any items of note in personnel?
Yes, we wanted to speak to Richard's retirement as one of our bus drivers. Richard Gauchon has been a very dependable driver for the past 20 years. Richard was patient, kind, respectful, and worked at building relationships with the students and the parents. Richard came to work very positive and was always willing to help out in any way he could. Richard would do activity trips or go and pick up a student that missed the bus. The transportation department will miss Richard for his many contributions to helping make the students' busing experience a positive experience. We all wish Richard the very best in his retirement, and that's from Rex Kozak, the transportation director. So thank you, Richard, for 20 years.
Thank you, Nora. Looking at interagency agreements and contracts, we've got a cooperative agreement with Iowa State University for clinical experiences effective August 1, 2023. A memorandum of lease with USCOC of Greater Iowa, and a second amendment to ground lease with USCOC of Greater Iowa. Project description with Massachusetts General Physicians Organization to provide 2 CPS coaching groups. That's collaborative problem solving. Okay, thank you. Memorandum of understanding with Iowa Jobs for American Graduates for IJAG Vocational Rehabilitation Services Program. An agreement with All American Publishing for the high school to receive free shirts. The JJ Visual Design Agreement for the high school band department. And a contract with Responsive Classroom to provide professional development on August 14, 2023. Questions about any of those agreements or contracts? Looking at open enrollments, there are 2 in and 1 out for the 22-23 school year. And then for the 23-24 school year, 2 in, 6 out. Randy, anything to note in bills?
No.
We've got a bunch of now obsolete uniforms that need to be declared obsolete uniforms. I assume the intention is to raffle those at the Bobcat Golf Outing?
Sell or raffle, yep.
Okay. And then in gifts, grants, and bequests, we have a donation from Jason Kirk of 5 redbud trees and mulch that were planted at Lenahan Intermediate School. The Stronger Connections grant in the amount of $335,156 for social, emotional, and behavioral health, and various scale-up STEM grants for a total amount of $22,932. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Stanley Hernandez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Zach, would you grab the pink sheet? Thank you. Becky?
Hello. I wanted to come tonight and express gratitude. On Tuesday, May 30th, I had the opportunity to meet with Dr. Schutte and Board President Sean Heitman. Maybe opportunity isn't the correct word I want to use. I agreed to a meeting after having the request to add bullying to the agenda was denied. I requested it to be added to the board meeting I spoke at on May 16th. I sent an email to Dr. Schutte on May 10th addressing concerns I had with the assault that occurred May 4th, along with ongoing concerns due to lack of honesty and timely communication between the district and parents. After forwarding the email to board member Karina Hernandez on May 13th, Dr. Schutte finally responded on May 14th. I was told it was then too short of notice to be added to that agenda, but informed me of the open mic. I immediately asked when the next meeting would take place and asked that it be added to the agenda. When I indicated that I would be there to speak at the open mic, I was only cautioned on what to say. I asked when the next meeting was because the last meeting was on a Tuesday. I wanted to arrange my schedule to make sure that I could make it work. Dr. Schutte never responded to my question about when the next meeting would be. I had to later find out through the district staff. On May 17th, I sent Dr. Schutte yet another email confirming that bullying would be added to the agenda and again asking for the date of this meeting. Still no response on the date of the meeting, so I'm very thankful to the staff that helped me with that. On May 19th, he responded asking for clarity about exactly what I wanted the board to discuss at the board table. I responded that I wanted the board to discuss the extent of bullying in the district, what can be done to change it. I indicated I could provide data such as videos and copies of incidents that's happened in the district. I noted that I thought a certain district administrator could possibly assist in gathering state and national figures for bullying. I shared that I had a number of parents and grandparents reach out to me about this issue. I ended the email with the hope that the community and the district could work together to find a peaceful solution. In the last year, I've had 15 to 20 families reach out to me regarding bullying, violence, and unethical behavior in the schools regarding students, and even more alarming, some administrators. After responding immediately to Theron's email, giving him the clarity he asked for, I heard nothing for days. On the morning of May 24th, I sent another email requesting confirmation that this be added to the agenda. A few hours later, he responded with an email telling me that he was attempting to schedule a board presentation and administer a workshop on behavior from prior to my request. He stated bullying would be a part of that conversation, but may or may not happen today, June 5th. Before I responded just a few hours later, I received another email from Theron. This time, I was told a better approach would be a meeting with Sean Heitman, board president, himself, Dr. Schutte, and me. He's still insisting on more information on what I want done on the topic. Feeling a little uncomfortable with the meeting, I again shared that I prefer to go to the school board agenda or possibly have an open forum on the topic. When those options were not available to me, I met with both Sean and Theron and B. Niblock. We spoke for over 2 hours, and I had just a little glimpse of hope that concerns would be heard. Instead, I received an email yesterday. The email was from Dr. Schutte telling me that he and Board President Heitman do not feel that it would be appropriate or productive to have a board agenda item of bullying and or behavior at this time. His email was quite long. I asked for clarification. I felt the response to me asking for clarification was rude and unprofessional, so I've not bothered to respond. My goal is for the students to be safe in our district. That's my number one priority. And once this issue is addressed, I hope that we can move forward, finding mutual respect between the district and the families that it serves. That's all.
Thank you. You want to?
Yeah, so the first topic is related to the concerns and or requests that have been made. I had the fortune of being invited and attending the superintendent roundtable, of which they've been holding a number of them across the country. EAB, the Educational Advisory Board, which is our research partner, and they've been doing a lot of research on what the top topics or the hottest topics are amongst school and school administrators at this point in time, and have been for the last couple of years, especially since COVID, if not before. So those topics range from teacher shortages or employee shortages to students' behavior is one of the top topics. Chronic absenteeism is another hot topic, as is learning loss and how to best address and accelerate learning. And so obviously this board has spent time having some conversation, particularly with the middle school, but I think all of our administrators would tell you that the challenges have become much more significant at the elementary, the intermediate, the middle school, and the high school, related to the number and in some cases the severity of student misbehavior. I think we would all agree that we're concerned with the level of suspensions and or long-term suspensions and expulsions that we've had to deal with this year particularly, but the last couple years on a variety of issues. And so it's my feeling that we need to first start with a workshop with experts who have looked at the research, because this isn't just a Marshalltown issue. You can talk to most anyone in schools across Iowa, across the country. They're all dealing with the same types of concerns, and nobody has a magic bullet answer. But at least through the research, we can take a look at what has proven to be most effective and try to determine what we might need to do differently or do better or continue to do or discontinue to do based on what that research is telling us. And so I'm working diligently to try to get that scheduled. EAB is based primarily out of Washington, D.C., and so it's not like we can get it scheduled tomorrow, but my goal and what I have shared with them is that I would like each of those workshops, whether they happen back-to-back, chronic absenteeism and student behaviors, to happen as soon as possible, but most likely it'll be mid to later July at the earliest, or maybe early August at the latest. So just wanted to share with the board, and I'm more than happy to share any correspondence that I've said so you can make a judgment as to whether anything that I've sent is rude or unprofessional too. I'd be happy to share that. But anyway, that's what the current game plan is, and I'll let you know because we'll want to schedule with your schedules as soon as possible those workshops. and try to make sure a majority of the people, and we would like it to be not only board, but board and/or administrative teams. So it might be a hybrid combination of both, or it may be that we do that together, but I think there'll be large benefit in doing that, and then working together to try to figure out how to make things better for all students and staff for the 23-24 school year.
Questions, comments?
I think that's good. I think most of us would welcome that conversation, so thank you for arranging that.
Good plan.
And I guess I would say part of that conversation obviously needs to include, the data from our own district. Because, I mean, we can talk about it, but we need to actually know what's going on. Otherwise, I'm not sure it's useful.
Right. And that timing will coincide when we typically provide student achievement data. Attendance will be part of that. We can include behavior as part of that as well.
And probably the sooner you can get out prospective dates, the better, so that we can make sure we've got those on our calendars.
I'm pushing.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay. Is Brad joining via Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay.
Should be able to hear us. Maybe ask him, Dr. Schutte, if he can hear us.
Brad, can you hear us? You're muted, it appears. Brad, are you able to hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Can I share my screen? Or did you have the PowerPoint that I can follow? I can go either way.
We'll have an answer in a moment.
He can go ahead and share.
Yep, you should be able to share now.
It says you cannot start screen share while the other participant is sharing.
Okay. You want to try it again? There we go.
Try it again. How does that look?
Yeah, we've got the individual slide. There we go. Yep. Perfect.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you again for everybody for making the time. We have the pleasure for multiple times to be able to take a snapshot of the culture with anonymous confidence survey across the entire district. And what I'd like to be able to do is share the results, a little bit about the process, and take any questions that you have. Again, you see from 2017 through this last administration, the participation, which is terrific. I come from the Gallup world where we would be thrilled if we had 50, and you had almost 90% participation. So that is very commendable, just in terms of every building, the communication, the process, and it's consistently an indication of how serious people take that administration and the board is viewing this process. So congrats for that as one indication of quality. When we look down to the building level, again, the overall is a part of all of it. We have some that are over 90, some that are less. Again, we can trend this every year, but we really talk about when we're having, especially in education, cultures being built, it's really at the building level that the magic happens. If we're equipping and supporting the building, the staff is viewing it as their culture, as their building, as a part of the overall district. So again, when you look at anything that's above 50, you can feel great. When you get above 80, you can feel terrific. So again, there's a lot of building level, team level, where the reply or the response is very high. again, just to remind our process is an online assessment, 88 questions before we add indexes. It's confidential, anonymous, and by design, we're asking 4 levels of questions. We're asking questions that start with I, where they're self-reporting things about themselves. You'll see some of those results and some of the outcomes. We're asking questions about the team they're a part of, department they're a part of, building they're a part of, the administrator or supervisor they report to, and the entire organization. In our research and experience over the last 4 decades, we know that all 4 levels have an impact on engagement, on performance, on retention. So it's not one of these, it's all of these have an influence and an impact. So that's why we stratify it, or segregate it, but blend it back when we look at the overall results. When we look at the kind of the bottom line picture of the entire district, this is where we rank order on a Likert scale 1 to 5 what 678 people said. So pride was the #1 dimension in the entire survey for 678 people, and there's between 4 and 8 questions in every one of the 15 dimensions. So again, very comprehensive. Sometimes we refer to it as kind of an organizational MRI. So pride on a 1 to 5 scale came out at 411. You'll see over on the right-hand column the change from the previous administration. So green is positive, red is negative, and you'll see by what degree we had movement. Number 2 was engagement inspiration at 402. And one more reference that we always have is when a dimension or a question hits a 4.0, that's considered to be a level of strength. So the first 3 dimensions are considered to be a strength level. So regardless of the ranking, the rating is what we pay attention to first and say, did it hit a level of strength? So pride did, engagement did, and quality did. And 2 of those 3 improved, 1 regressed by 0.13. Continuous improvement, we know, is an element of a strong culture where people are never satisfied. What can we do better? How can we incrementally improve again and again forever? That came out at a 387. That was just above a 4 the last time. Satisfaction was a 387. Last time was a 388. Relationships went up 0.13 to a 386, which is one of the strongest dimensions to drive engagement is relationships. Training development went up by 0.06 to a 385. Career development, which our most recent research run has showed as one of the top and most important current topics to invest in. So it used to be one of the top 5, now it's one of the top 3 reasons that people join and stay in an organization is career development. So 382, strong, not quite at the strength level yet, but improving by the 0.09 from last time. Innovation is 381, which is similar to continuous improvement. It's more the degree. It's a best ever, first ever, barn practices outside an industry or profession or within. But again, it's one of the key drivers to a quality culture. Communication is consistently one of the bottom 3. So the fact that it's not bottom 3 is something we notice. Something that we see improved by a 0.1 is a positive. So it's one of the hardest to improve, one of the hardest to move, and it's stronger, much stronger in your organization than it would be in most. Talent and fit at 377. Typically, that's going to be done in a 355 or 35 in a typical organization. Performance planning, which is about goal setting, 372, improved by 0.02. Mission consciousness is a 372, improved by 0.04. Recognition is the world's 15th ranked item. That'd be a 3.4 in the world. Yours is almost a 3.7, improved by 0.03. And support and equip stayed steady where it was at a 3.64, which in the world is one of the bottom 4 items. But again, when you look at your gap, you go from the lowest at 3.64 to the highest at a 4.11. So a fairly tight range. What we'd like to be able to see is all green, in terms of improvement. And what I'd like to be able to see is how we could double the number that are 4.0 and above. So That's a snapshot at the district level, 678 people responding to 88 questions in the survey. So there's a lot of data points to give us this information. And you remember, participation was 87%, so high participation. So before I go to the next slide, any questions that I can respond to or entertain?
Doesn't look like it.
All right. So I'm going to go to the highest items out of 88. The number one is I'm fully engaged in the work I do. So again, you'll notice it's an I question. They're responding to themselves. So 443, great. But we would challenge, when we get into building, do feedback, we'd say, why can't that be a 5? Just like we would say, second question, number 4, I feel great pride in the work I do. 441, what keeps you from responding with a strongly agree? Or 91, the third one, I take complete ownership for my attitude and effort embracing a growth mindset. A growth mindset is the design of this survey. You'll get a snapshot of it here in a minute, where we're asking questions that measure the growth mindset of the staff at the building level. It elevates the awareness, the importance, and the role modeling of staff in order to reinforce it with students. Fourth highest question, in my role, I have the opportunity to do things that I both do well and enjoy, which is a strong reflection of talented people are selected and positioned in their roles. That has a dramatic impact on engagement. So 433 on an item like that is very strong. And then the fifth highest item, I am driven to contribute to the success of our organization at 433. So they didn't move much when we're talking about 0.04, 0.02, 0.03, either positive or negative. What we would say is those are very stable from the time we did it before. So before I go to the bottom items, any questions about the high items?
Nope, I think you're good.
All right, so let's go to the bottom. So the bottom of all, your number 88th question, question 9 is where the world ranks last. So we can say, normal in Marshalltown, like the rest of the world, no one's complaining about too much recognition. They're saying, I put forth effort. I don't remember if I have or when or how meaningful it was. So we have obviously an opportunity for recognition practices to improve. The interesting thing is that when we talk about how people received it, and then we have a question that's much higher ranked by almost 1 point higher, people talk about, well, we give it, we just don't get it. So we don't know who they're giving it to because people aren't getting it. And what we know is people give themselves more credit for saying, hey, great job, Joe, or great job, whoever. And it doesn't hit the threshold of meaningful. So it's actually other questions in the survey that are actionable, more actionable than question 9, that we have an opportunity to impact. Question 28 is a common one we see in education. I provide the opportunity to spend quality time with my supervisor, span of control, expectations. Both of those impact how those are typically not rated high. And many times people say, I don't need it. I'll just, I'll ask if I need it. Otherwise, I don't need quality time. I'm good in my classroom. I'm good in whatever my role. So the expectations we find, if we go education, healthcare, manufacturing, is the expectations or the needs are not as high for this item in education. That's not to generalize. It's not important to anybody. But if we were going to generalize across the profession, we see education not rating that as important as it is in other industries or professions. Similarly, on question 40, in the past 3 months, my supervisors discussed my successes and progress with me. They're like, hey, I'll tell you at the end of the year, tell me how I'm doing. Or if I wonder how I'm doing, I'll ask. But sometimes it's like no news is good news, and that's okay with a lot of people. That's not true across all industries or professions, and that's not true across every person. So it's an important thing to measure, because where it's important, we need to address it. Question 82, business decisions made are consistent with our mission and core values. It's about, we put in the mission conscious category, where we're wanting to align what decisions are made and how people see those aligned with the things they see are needed. So again, an improved by 0.04, 338, you know, we haven't hit the threshold of strength yet. And then 77, different than the other one on strength, is our organization selects the right people for the right job. So sometimes I'll make a reference to, well, they might have gotten Michael Jordan, but he might be playing baseball. He might be great, or she might be great in the role they're in, or great overall, but not as great in the role they're in. And this is not a general reference typically. It's usually somebody's working with somebody who isn't great in their role. And it could be 1 out of 5, it could be 1 out of 10, but they remember the person who isn't right for the role that's impacting them. So again, you kind of have mixed scores on talent. That's more about, you know, every role, every building, you know, in a sense of evaluating that, you know, with a finer tooth comb. So that's the highest and the lowest of the 88 questions. Questions before I go on to next slide?
Nope.
All right. Good thing is all the low items improved. We'd like to see them improved by 0.1 or higher, but they improved. The next piece is what I referenced earlier, is we have an index in the assessment in the survey that measures growth mindset. And when we can report that almost 2/3 is at the high level, the threshold that we measure for growth mindset, that's encouraging, because again, if staff is demonstrating it, and so, you know, obviously they're answering them about themselves, but they're answering about other people that impact that. We only see 3% of it across the entire district that's rated low. So we know it's a lever for role modeling growth mindset for staff and students, but it has to start with staff before it's going to be, you know, truly effective with students. So that's a new feature to the survey. It's an upgrade from what we've done as we see more and more of this being more mainstream about we've got to have resilient students who face challenges in the world, and growth mindset is a core part of that, about choosing your attitude and choosing your effort. You know, it's not, you know, whatever your advantages or disadvantages are, a growth mindset basically ignores that and says, I can't, you know, rest on my laurels if I'm born with advantages or given advantages, and I can't be handicapped if I've been given disadvantages. What it basically says is everybody is working hard every day to go to the next level. So again, new feature to the survey, and then we can see specific questions where we can report about themselves, the organization, and supervisor. So again, using the same Likert scale, 1 to 5, look at where are the 4s and where's the improvement. So some of these are new questions. That's why they don't have any reporting on the change, because this is year 1 for those questions. In past, if there's some of those questions, there's 3 of them, there is a historical reference, and question 6, the third ranked one, went up by 0.34, which is huge movement. So to have any item for 678 people that went up by 0.34, something is happening to affect that change. And obviously it was below a 4 before, well into the 4s now. So whether it's process, practice, discipline, people seeking opportunities to further their growth and development is a very positive sign. So again, on these items, you saw all of them. You see all of them are above a 4 or strength level. The lowest one is down with 36, and that's a 371. So again, new dimension, very important lever in the growth of students affected by staff. Questions on any of the items on this index? All right. So the next bottom line picture we have is kind of like a heat map. We see how people feel on 2 important axes. Are they giving their all, which is the x-axis? We call it engagement. Do they want to do it there at Marshalltown? which is the y-axis. So you have people populated in all 9 boxes. Somebody in the lower left doesn't feel like somebody in the upper right. The good thing is we have 10 times more people in the extreme of engagement and satisfaction. Again, the broadest, best number that somebody could extrapolate from all the people that do the work in the engagement world would be a 32% would be where the world would be, where you're 51%. So again, if we wanted to have a context to your ideal number, we call that the dream box. The world would be 32 and you're 51. Last year, you see in the small boxes where it was a year ago. So it was 54, now it's 51. So obviously we'd like to have it go in the other direction. What we do look at is the neighborhood, and that's the 4 boxes that make up, that upper right. So the 5103, the 634, the 18.29, and the 12.09. Because those 3 inner boxes are sometimes only a step away, a discussion away, a relationship away, or an effort away from going from the middle up into the upper right. So that's a part of the process we always work on, is how at the building level can you have those conversations with action items to drive conditions so people can go, up into that dream box and move it to the point where it can be, high, mid 50s, 60s, 70s. And what I'll report on next is where we see buildings standing out. So while they're in the same community, we're going to see buildings that are higher than the 5103, because obviously that's the average of the district. This is the trend on the dream box. So 55, 60, 69, 56, 53, 51. We saw a spike before COVID, and we have seen in many cases, not all cases, but in many cases, kind of a recovery post-COVID. So that's where you see from the 69 to the 56, 53, 51. But again, one indication, as I indicated earlier, is participation at 87%. Means people are saying, you still care, you're still asking, you're still working on it. It's not all about a score, it's about, are you still making my opinion safe to seek and to listen to action items. When we look at the trends at the building level, we can highlight, I know it's kind of busy, but this is every department reported, and we look at one of them that stands out significantly, and that is the district admin center at 83%. And then we have 3 buildings that moved significantly from a year ago. Is it Hoagland or Hoagland? Hoagland, Franklin, and Fisher. So there were 4 between the top one at the district admin center and the 3 I just mentioned. They would be the role models for the district, to be able to recognize those departments or buildings and to be able to say, let's find out what they've been doing that the rest can learn from. So obviously, it's the sum of the parts that make the whole, and this is a way of looking at the sum of the parts and the progress. So again, some of these are significant in terms of their movement up. Some of them moved down, some of them stayed stable. But we really want to be able to equip the building level to drive their culture, because it's those building level, department level that move the district. So with that as the kind of overall and the summary, any questions that I can be helpful with as you think about this important process that has a direct impact on student engagement?
So just remind me, Brad, or maybe Dr. Schutte, the buildings get like more detailed information at a building level, right?
Correct, yes. They get not only all the dimensions like you saw earlier at the district level, but they get all the questions, and they get it's in a technology platform. Basically, they go into the dashboard and they can drill down on questions. They can see, in communication or recognition or whatever it might be, what's actionable there, what's highest, what's lowest, where we've made the progress. So they have the details to go into at the building level. And obviously, at the district level, people have access to the dashboard, as well as when there's action plans that are developed, it's documented in the dashboard. So it's not just notes and memory, it's in a dashboard. We can go back and look at, well, what did we do in those 3 buildings where it moved up? Let's go learn from them. Many times in education, they talk about a professional learning community, which is basically from a business world, we talk about best practices. Well, let's go learn from those 3 buildings that moved up. What did they do? And we can go into their dashboards and see that.
Yeah, basically, we charge each building and/or department, depending on how they're broken up, to identify 2 or 3 things that they've identified that are in need of improvement and they feel like they can leverage towards improvement. And then maybe at least one of the things in their top 5 that's kind of we absolutely want to sustain the strength of this particular area. So usually it's 2 to 4 at the most goals, and then work together collaboratively as a building and or a department to identify strategic actions to make those things better. An example with central office is that we do that very thing, and then we break our team of roughly 30 people or so into 4 subcommittees that then work on their area, their goal area, to identify some strategic actions, implement them, and oftentimes there's collaborative efforts between the committees as well. So
You mentioned some specific things that maybe were areas that if you actioned that, it helped move that score more than others where actions maybe didn't really change the survey results significantly. So I'm assuming you kind of go over this with the buildings as well, not just with us, but you kind of dive into the building by building scenarios with them. Do you kind of point them in certain directions, like these are areas, or the dashboard and tool kind of helps point them in the areas that they think historically would have the most impact?
Yes, so in the dashboard, when you go into any of these dimensions I showed, I think that was slide number 5. I'll go back to that real quick so we can just reference that. So when we go to this, in the dashboard, you can click on recognition, and you can go to all the questions that are making up that dimension, which is a half a dozen questions. And talking about whether it's lateral or vertical recognition or giving it or getting it. And you go, oh, well, it's low in terms of getting it because I guess we haven't been giving it. And so it can't be something that just comes from Theron. It's got to typically come from their peer group in the building. The people that see the good work being done every day. It's not just one thing that's done. Or career development is more of a systemic or macro level, district level commitment. That's not always something that can be solved or addressed as much at the building level as the district level. Communication, to get a 378 and to move it 0.10, that typically is not happening at building level by itself. That's typically happening at a district level first and foremost. So it's where they place the importance, where people follow through and execute, and where you have some of the strongest leadership at the building level. You're going to see them dive into it, dig into it, understand it, execute it better. And then obviously we're always available. We're not only supporting feedback, but best practices.
Thank you.
Other questions? Well, thank you, Brad.
Thank you. Look forward to being there next time in person and keep up the good work. 87% participation would be top 10%. So a lot of good things happening there when you think about year 6 of doing this. Keep it up.
thank you.
Jackie, Dave, Kristen?
Hello?
Hello, hello. You're perfect. Thank you guys for your time. So we have the opportunity to just share, at least for Miller, our baseline data for high school ready, and then we'll lead into Jackie with her college and career readiness. So this first slide, I don't know why I clicked my computer like I was going to move it. So through work-based learning and our college career ready group, we set some SMART goals, and the 22-23 school year was actually our baseline data drive, so this is actually working out really well. So by May 2023, we will have our baseline of how many kids are high school ready, so we can create our goal for the future year. And then our 5-year goal is to come up with that number, which was I think 60% of 8th graders by May 2026 will be high school ready. And we'll share just a little bit about what that looks like, but then also just some difficulties in pulling that data at the middle school level. So that's kind of, this is our baseline for the 22-23 school year with our 8th graders. You can go to that next slide.
Sure, no, I can do it. So at Miller, to be high school ready, students have to have a C or better in all of their core classes, or at grade level proficiency on ISASP in ELA, math, and science, so at the state level. In addition to that, they need to have 4 of the following 6 indicators, which would be behavior indicators. So attendance rates of 90% or better, no suspensions or expulsions, no code of conduct violations, participation in at least 2 or more co-curricular activities, 10 or more community service hours, and the ability to identify at least one positive trusted adult at school. So the first 2 indicators are fairly simple to pull. The others, some of them are fairly easy. Attendance and the first 3, attendance, suspensions, and expulsions, are pretty easy. The last 3 ended up taking a little bit of our time.
So our baseline data for 7th grade for high school ready was 74 of our 374 students, which was 20%. In 8th grade, 159, which was 39%. And we'll share a little bit about why that data looks the way that it does, and that difficulty in meeting some of those criteria within 7th and 8th grade, and how some of our data polls made it maybe a little skewed. So Transio is where our data is housed. Tableau.
Community service.
Sorry, Tableau. But the one thing that's difficult is community service can't be pulled there, as well as a lot of our co-curricular. So like Pokemon Club is not in Infinite Campus, so if they participate in something like that, we wouldn't be able to pull that data. So that's where it got a little fuzzy. So we'll talk about some things that are going well, and then I've kind of started to touch on just some direction and some needs that we need to be able to really pull the true indication of this data. But again, this is our baseline, so it's our place to start.
So particularly when you think about the extracurricular, co-curricular activities, as Kristen touched on, right now we just don't have a very good system in place to measure who is participating in some of our clubs, like Pokemon Club, Dungeons and Dragons, photography, art, all the different clubs that exist. And then I think as a building, we still need to decide what would constitute being in that club. So how many meetings of that club should a student attend over the course of the year, or how many times should they be there to be considered a part of that club versus, yeah, I went the first 2 times to Dungeons and Dragons Club and then I stopped going. Well, did you participate, or was that, like going to the first week of volleyball and then deciding I don't want to be in volleyball anymore? We do have to work more closely with our coaches to make sure that team rosters are entered into Infinite Campus under a non-instructional course. They all exist. When we went to pull that, we noticed that it hadn't been updated as much as we had thought it had been. So those kinds of things are things that we can work on, and we just have to be a little bit more diligent on it. we do feel really good about all of our kids being able to identify someone at school who they can go and talk to, someone who they feel has their back, whether that's a student who's heavily involved or a student who's on the surface fairly disengaged. So it's good to know that all of our kids seem like they have someone that they can connect with. As far as community service, it's a little bit more of a challenge at a middle school kid where kids aren't mobile on their own. You know, they have to get a ride to go do community service, or they have to do something. So if we can incorporate some of that into the school day, and our teen outreach program in coordination with Micah has been really helpful as far as that goes. So all of the students who take that exploratory meet that threshold fairly easily.
And then another thing that's going well is, with the work-based learning, we've expanded it into the middle school, and so we're providing opportunities for students to have work experiences and job shadows. So again, it doesn't tie directly into being high school ready, but then it ties right into being high school ready. So it's just kind of getting some of those experiences. We're not going to send a 12-year-old to a job shadow, but we have those opportunities to bring people in to Miller, or to do just a small scale kind of a job shadow or a work experience that looks different than the high school, but at least just to kind of test the waters a little bit. So on that next slide, then we're looking at, the next steps and then what's needed. So next steps is, and I think Jackie will say much the same thing, is just better engaging the students and the staff and examining that data and having that conversation. We make goals at the beginning of the year. We really focus on ISASP and A-reading and, attendance and behavior, but really digging into those and looking at those grades, ISASP, extracurricular participation, and we, as we talked about what's going well, we keep adding those opportunities for our students, but then how to document and how to pull that data correctly. So yes, we have a chess club, but how many people participated in that, and then did they finish it through, or Pokemon Club and things like that. And then having behavior goals and attendance goals for our students, which is, Dr. Schutte mentioned that, earlier in this meeting, that those are things universally that we're looking at as a district. And then just making sure that high school ready is part of that conversation. It's part of the goals that we're making. Dave and I have those conversations with students all of the time when we're meeting with them in our office, but going beyond, Mr. Glenn and myself in our offices. And then just some needs is for us a system to track all of this, especially community service at the middle school level. We literally today and Friday went through each kid hand by hand to see if they had the grades, if they had the extracurricular, if they had the attendance, and then if they were in TOPS, because then they automatically had those 10 hours of community service. So, just a way for us to track it a little easier would be huge. I'm not a huge data person, so that was a really long day today pulling all that data. But we were able to at least get our baseline data. So those are just kind of our next steps and our needs, and I appreciate us having that baseline data now and then being able to move forward with that.
At the high school, we engaged in Bobcat Ready before 2020. Actually, Dr. Schutte came back with some indicators that we delved into closely. One of the examples of an indicator that we looked at and examined how it fits our community is the 2.75. I believe it was 3.0. We changed it to 2.75 to match our MEP scholarship. So that's been helpful. And then I also believe that Dr. Schutte, hopefully I get them all right, Theron, took this Bobcat Ready initiative before the chamber, the city council, the Iowa Valley Community College District, and of course Marshtown Community School District, to get their stamp on approval of the things that we believe will make a student college and career ready. So as you can see on the college ready indicators, there are 2.75 is the first thing that students have to have. And then they have to have one of the others. So participation in the AP exam with a 3, or some dual credit courses in English, math, science, or social studies, which we have, as you know, with our 21 associate degree winners. Lots of students engaged in dual credits. Developmental math or English. Unfortunately, English has not been a huge selection at the high school, but that developmental math has been. a popular course to take. They could take Algebra 2 or equivalent of 4 years of English, math, and science, which helps with the Regents Index when they're applying for college admissions. There's a big or, if you go to the next slide, Amy, because this is one way to get that academic, well, then there's one more different way, which I was able to sift through a lot of data, as Kristen and Dave talked about. Oh, maybe I better use this microphone, sorry. I was able to find some students who didn't have the 2.75, but they did have AccuPlacer score that qualified them for Bobcat Ready. So that was, again, I had to dig into that pretty deep for every 369 of them to figure out who we might have missed because they had that career ready. So for Bobcat Ready, you have College Ready and, next slide, please. And Career Ready. Next slide, please. So 3 of these benchmarks, as you can see there, including that community service and attendance behavior. But again, as Kristen alluded, getting an industry credential is easier to do at the high school. Working at the high school is easier, dual credit. And the one thing that we added is on the very bottom, earning the seal of biliteracy, since we've had quite a few students earning that seal of biliteracy. I believe we had 54 seniors this year earn the seal of biliteracy. So when you put the 2 together, then you get what is called Bobcat Ready. So here's some of our baseline. Again, it was with the class of 2019. It wasn't intended for the class of 2019, but we thought, okay, well, let's just see where everybody's at in 2019. It was actually intended for the class of 2020, who was our first Gear Up class. Actually, it's our second Gear Up class. It was Gear Up 2.0, how they were doing. So here you can see the count. There were, where's the total? Is it not fitting on there? 106 grand totals, 106 students who earned Bobcat Ready. And then you can see the distribution among ethnicity, Hispanic, whether or not they were English language learners or special ed students. So we know that we need to do better for special ed. We also need to know that our ethnic groups balance the ethnicity among our students. It should be a reflection of our student body, right? We know that needs to improve. There are areas there that need to improve. If you go to the next slide, this is a summative through last year. And as you can see, the class of 2020, they earned, so in 2019, 30% of the students, almost 31, earned Bobcat Ready. In 2020, 45% of them did. In 21, 35, almost 36% did it. And last year, 34%. Now remember, go back to that first thing, academic indicators, college ready. You have to have a 2.75. So the word potential there means how many kids in the students or in that class had a 2.75? Well, in 2019, almost 40%. Okay, so that's something to think about. They're coming out of middle school, coming into high school, and that GPA starts. And it has to be a 2.75. So they need to be engaged in that 2.75. They really need to understand how that 2.75 is going to play out. So in 2019, of the almost 40% of students who had a 2.75, 77% of them earned Bobcat Ready. Similarly, in 2020, keeping in mind the pandemic, we closed, they only had 6 weeks worth of grades in that second semester. They had a whole extra month of school to work on the grades. They could choose a pass or fail, so they could control a little bit of that GPA. 52% of them had a 2.75, and 90% of those who had that 2.75 made Bobcat Ready. What a difference that makes. And then in 21, 45% had a 2.75, 79% of those earned the Bobcat Ready. And then last year, 45% had a 2.75, and 76% of those earned Bobcat Ready. So on the next slide, you'll see that it's important, that Bobcat Ready, if you're not going to go to college, whatever that looks like, technical school, 2-year school, 4-year school, a certificate versus a degree, then you are employing or enlisting. But it's that Bobcat Ready, that career piece, is leaving high school with the skills to be a great employee, to to advance a little quicker. And then maybe in some cases recognizing, oh, I need to go back to school so I can get some more skills. So our students have been engaged in the career boards, which you can see an example here. And you can see the little leaves there are actually representations of students who have selected that career cluster. So they engaged in activity at school around all of those career boards. And then in their Infinite Campus, and you can see the banner at the bottom of that slide, it says what career clusters they have chosen. So that is part of being Bobcat Ready, is also choosing a career cluster. In this case, the student has two, which are pretty close, right? They're in the business genre, business and marketing. So that's the kinds of activities that we engage in all year long in college and career readiness. So let's go into the class of 23. Keeping in mind that this was that ninth grade students who were, they were ninth graders in that COVID year. There were 162 at a GPA of 2.75 or higher. 131 of that class earned the seal. So 80% of those eligible earned, or excuse me, 80% of those eligible were also career ready. So these are students working, they've been engaged in dual credit courses in CTE areas, or they have been engaged in a work-based learning experience like an apprenticeship. I got a couple gentlemen back here who take kids out on different sites and take them down to Des Moines so they can enjoy some career explorations in all of the different areas of CTE. Raul would take students out to the masonry and the brick company and do masonry with the students. So they're finding ways to get kids out there and exposed. And again, I picked construction just by happen chance. So in summary, the class of 2023. Thanks, Amy. Still struggling with special ed in terms of the disaggregation of the data. We did have 131 students who earned Bobcat Ready. And I, like Dave and Kristen, dug through the data, looking for every single student, emailing them, asking them if they're working, if they've been engaged in some work-based learning experience, because oftentimes they just need one more data point to get them there. In a few cases, like I said, I was able to find them. So we have a few underrepresentations again. And what's nice about Bobcat Ready, if you go to the next slide, they, on their official transcript, they earn the seal of the seal of college and career readiness, Bobcat Ready. And if they earn the seal of biliteracy, there's an example of the seal of biliteracy on a transcript. So it is beautiful. It's in color. Our district did pay to have this done special, so that students can have this sent out in their eighth semester transcripts when they go out. So what is going well? Zello, which you heard Jenny Allen talk about that a few weeks ago, is our career exploration platform. So there's a lot of opportunities for students to explore. Our college and career ready counselor, she leads the lessons in Zello. She prepares them and she disseminates that to the homeroom teachers who facilitate that in 80 homerooms that we have. She also coordinates college access visits and career exploration activities. She doesn't necessarily lead those, but she certainly passes information along to teachers so that they can take students out and enjoy those opportunities. And then, again, I previously mentioned that upwards of 60% are demonstrating career readiness. Finally, our implementation of our individual career and academic planning activities, which Ms. Arevalo and Jenny Allen again were here and presented on our ICAP, the district ICAP. We do a really good job, I think, as a district, not just at the high school, across all grade levels, in implementing the activities that we say we will do in order to prepare students for career and academic planning. So our next steps, which have been alluded to a couple of times here, is that we do need to engage students engaging their student or examining their student level data, especially that GPA. I want to think about that. It kind of dawned on me, that could happen as early as freshman year and it's done and over if they're not paying attention. Because it's really hard to get it back up to 275 if they're not paying attention right away. Obviously, credits earned and what types of credits they're earning, their attendance, which We've had a lot of conversation about that today, and their Bobcat Ready status. So that is a dashboard that they have. I don't know that they've paid a lot of attention to that. So we'll just have to be more purposeful about it. But one of the things that we did when the 8th graders came over on the same day that the seniors were at rehearsal, we had the 8th graders come down to the gym so they could hear what kind of PEs they could take. But they sat in the same chairs that the seniors had just been in there, and I have goosebumps. They had to sit in those chairs so that they could imagine themselves in those chairs in 4 years from that day. So that's the beginning of that. They have to see themselves to believe that they can do this. So that was the image we left them with on that Friday when they came over to visit us in preparation to be seniors, freshmen for the next year. So, questions for any of us?
During the Miller, and maybe you explained this already, but is there a conversation about what a GPA is?
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. We don't have the plus minus, so it's actually a little bit easier to have that conversation than it is for Jackie and some of the high school students. But yeah, so it's just a 4, 3, 2, 1, and so we talk about what that impact has, and sometimes we share personal stories about what Jackie just talked about, which is the difficulty in getting 4 grade points back up. So it's easier to start high and stay high.
I would say that one of our challenges at the high school is that because GPA doesn't mean a lot at the middle school, they don't equate that to the earning the credits and that GPA. They just are not connecting those points. Now, those students who are already in Algebra 1, English 9, now they're doing some other Spanish and things like that. All of those students understand that this is going to immediately impact my GPA if I roll into high school without that 4.0. Yeah, it's a big deal for them. Not all students make the connection.
And we did have the opportunity to recognize about 350 students who had a 3.5 or above at our end of the year assembly. So that was good.
That's awesome.
Yeah. A lot of names.
And are the students, when they come out of Miller with a strong grade point average, is that being maintained in high school? Do we have any data to show if that's?
Most of them do. Occasionally we have, and I can still see his face, a student who, he actually dropped out of high school.
Oh.
Had taken Algebra 1, English 9 in middle school, and then just something happened along the way. And, he knew that he was ahead of the game, so he kind of played that a little bit, and then he started to get too far behind. But generally, most of them remain.
I don't know if we've ever actually tracked that 7, 12, how they did in 7th grade to 12th grade, but I would just guesstimate just the kids that we see that have that.
And my gut check is telling me that sometimes they disengage in senior year because they're accelerated.
Oh.
They've extra accelerated in some cases,
So
and
they've got their credits, so they disengage.
and you can sometimes, before when geometry was in the middle school, you could be done with algebra and pre-calculus as a sophomore, and then not take 2 years of math before you go to college. Is not strongly recommended.
No, not if you're going into engineering, no.
Correct.
Well, and I think, even when we were pulling our data today, we were really interested in some of our just bright shining stars that weren't high school ready. Like they had the GP, they had all A's. They just maybe weren't in top, so they didn't have that community service, and then they didn't have 2 co-curriculars. And so that was kind of disappointing. I mean, just going through our list of, just some amazing kids that aren't technically high school ready because they're not into sports. And so then, how do we pull that, then does mariachi band count? But it's not, because it's really it's a class.
It's in the day.
Our jazz band is a class, show choir is a class. It's not an extracurricular.
Are they performing outside of school?
Yes, but I
But
don't
as a
know.
performance standard.
But they have a performance standard, so it's graded, So there's some weird things that fall into that you've got some really great kids, and I'm sure at the high school as well.
So it sounds like that might be more a problem with your criteria than with the student. that they may be high school ready, but the way we've set it up, it makes it look like they're not.
Right.
Another thing to consider, you guys work your heinies off trying to pull the data together and doing all this other stuff. And sometimes it might be worth a few thoughts about how do you engage students that very first or second week of school into the knowledge of what Bobcat Ready really means. And to be a Bobcat and to lay that out and have them do a career, an individual plan for themselves. How can I get there? How can I get this distinction? And unless they know the criteria up front, it's really difficult for them to even plan their school lives to be ready, to be Bobcat ready at the end of 8th grade for high school or at the end of high school for graduation. So just to think about, and I don't have the answer of how to do that, but
But at the end of the year, you could have the kids self-report. If they had a form, which extracurriculars I did, how did I do my volunteer work, what's my grade point?
Yeah.
That might
Because
actually.
grade point's easy. Those are easy.
Yeah, those are easy.
It is the extracurricular, it is the community
Right.
service, and that's,
Well,
You
at least
know.
it'll narrow down if they've self-reported.
right.
Yeah.
But then it goes back to, okay, they said they were in Pokemon Club.
Right, but it makes it a lot easier for you to check it.
Right, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
right.
exactly.
Yeah, Jackie, you said there was a dashboard that they can.
There is a dashboard, and it has it's red and green, so for each of those indicators for high school or college, CCR, it'll turn red or green, and you can hover over it, and it'll say what you have to do to get it to turn green.
And the students have access.
At the high school.
I do not think the students have access to that. But any adult, so like in a homeroom activity, any adult should be able to pull that out and show them.
Okay.
What we had been doing early on was printing report cards, which we actually got recognized for being the first to develop at the grading periods, but in the high school, there's only 2 grading periods, semester and end of the year. So it really does take more regular, counseling, advising, encouraging than just at the grading points. And the community service doesn't have to be a school-based community service if our kids are made knowledgeable about what constitutes community service, whether it's babysitting without charging or, a lot of our kids obviously got exposed to community service during the tornado and the derecho cleanup. The sooner and the more engaged we have kids doing that, whether it's accommodated by the school or on their own, I think the more kids we'll see pursuing Silver Cord, at the high school and understanding what that is, as well as a Bobcat Ready component to that. But with this really being the first year of taking stock of the indicators in the middle school, obviously you already have acknowledged lessons learned, and so how can we make things more efficient and effective, which the high school worked through probably 3 or 4 years ago.
We had the same struggle.
So,
Yeah, what's fortunate about community service is our community now knows they just have to email somebody and someone will get it pushed out to students. We use GoTransio, which is a service that the student enters the hours that they've done, the email of the person that supervised them, and that email goes to the supervisor who just has to click yes or no. It's that simple that the student in fact did do this time with us, and then they rack up the hours. So
an example of that is our student school board reps, so they would submit their time that they spent on the school board. It would come to me to approve, and then they'd get credit for that.
For the high school ready, is this communication also goes to parents?
This initial,
Like
to let them know that their kids are high school ready?
how they can become high school ready, like when they enter 7th grade?
Yeah, we haven't been very explicit about it. I think we've talked about it at open house and some other opportunities, but I think that's an excellent point, Karina. I think we just need to make that part of one of our very, very first Family Miller Minutes. As you enter Miller, here's things we're going to be watching.
Yeah.
And if there's some kind of worksheet for that, each student.
Yeah.
That the parent can help supervise also, that would be
Right.
very
So, I
helpful.
think if some parents saw the data and they'd be like, what? My kid's in high school ready? I mean, they'd be disappointed. So I think even
Yeah.
just them kind of keeping track of it too would be huge. And, and like Dr. Shu said, we've got the baseline now, and now we can really, bring in those parents
Yeah.
because I think they would really want to know.
And is it something you talk to them about at conferences?
We do, and like I said, we've
with-
talked about it at
To what
open
level of
house.
fidelity, I don't know.
Right.
Right.
And is every teacher doing it to that level of fidelity? Sure.
So maybe like a part of our website too, for the middle school.
Yeah, for sure.
Or part of your win time, isn't that a smaller group that they have for win time? That
Yeah.
might be
That's what we do too.
a place for you to handle that.
Yep. And they make goals in there, so I don't.
You could
this would
tie
be
it to this.
Seamless to
Right.
make, just kind of expand it just a smidge.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
they're already making goals in there, so, yep.
Well, thank you all who were
Yeah.
able to attend graduation as well. That was a special day for our community and our students. And we had so many people on the stage, it was unbelievable. But thank you.
Hey, can I ask one more question, Jackie?
Yeah.
So do I, as a parent, can I look at my high school student through Infinite Campus or whatever and see if they're,
I have that
Bobcat ready?
written down, how we can open that up in the parent portal. That would be a Dave Stanfield question, which, he always says we have hours to spend. So, I mean, we can spend hours on getting that done.
With campus.
At Infant
Right.
Campus, yeah.
right?
And
Okay.
Miller, I don't know if you were going to ask.
There are some dashboards set up in Tableau, which is connected to Infinite Campus, that should indicate how many Miller's kids are high school ready, but right now it's sitting at about 8%. And so that's why
But
we
I still
were,
challenged it.
that's why we were pretty surprised by that number, and we started digging in on our own
right.
and thought, well, it's missing this.
I've
it's
done the
missing
same.
this, it's missing this. So that's on our list of conversation to have with Dave Stanfield about.
But I think, yeah,
how
that'd
do
be
we
nice
make it
for.
talk better.
For parents to even see
And
somehow.
And the kids do.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Have a good one.
Jackie, are you leaving?
You're not done yet.
I'm not done.
We've got the June graduates.
We
That's
did
all.
have.
We have the June graduates.
We do have June graduates. These 3 students did not make it on our list somehow. So they've actually met the graduation requirements and will participate in the June graduation ceremony. There are some other students who also met graduation requirements prior to May 28th, but they chose the smaller ceremony for whatever personal reason that they have, which is absolutely fine. And then summer school started today at the high school, and so we're hoping to get another 10 to 15 into that ceremony, which we hope to hold up at the Orpheum in that small auditorium, which would be nice and intimate for a group of 15 to 20 students. So with your permission, I'd like you to acknowledge these 3 students as potential graduates of Marshalltown High School.
Hey, just for, when is the June graduation?
It'll be June 29th at 5 o'clock.
Okay. Any other questions?
You can see your Bobcat ready?
Yep, for my kid.
Oh,
We're going to need to talk.
Okay.
there you go. There's your answer. Sorry. I
Right.
have to track the motion.
I need to know.
everyone.
I need to know.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the June 2023 high school graduates as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Faltus Hernandez? All in favor, say aye.
Hi.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Jackie.
June 20,
June 29,
29.
5 o'clock.
Well, that's the same night as that Chamber of Commerce meeting.
Is it?
All right. Good evening. I am here with Jenny Allen, our Curriculum Professional Development Leader for College Career Readiness and CT. She does oversee some departments such as the CTE, and we have Ben Coulter here as well, and Jake Samuelson, although I always want to think of you as Jake Sullivan, who was the Iowa State basketball player. So I'm proud that came out right. Anyway, these two guys have been just incredible in, along with Jenny, in really thinking through some curricular needs with our industrial arts department, some long overdue needs, to be honest, and I'm really excited to have them here with me tonight. So I will pass it off to you, Jenny.
Yeah, thanks. So this is super exciting for us because when I took over this position and started helping Raul and the teachers at that time in about 2020 look at their curricular resources, the most current textbooks that we could find in the industrial tech area were from 1987. So at that point, we thought it's time to get something. And at that point, Raul had been new to coming out of the math and science classrooms, and so he knew what it was like to have curriculum, and he was like, we've got to do something. So that's kind of how this all got started, and it's been a really exciting journey for us. So we'll just talk a little bit about that journey. We followed the evaluation and adoption process as closely as we could to what other areas have used in the past. There isn't quite as many curricular options out there for industrial tech as there are for like reading or math or science. And so we didn't have as many choices, and we kind of had in mind with what we wanted. So we met as a curriculum committee with Raul and Jake and Ben and myself, and we kind of looked at the current reality, what courses we were offering, what content we were using, what other resources we were using. And then we needed to find out like what best practices were for industrial tech. So we invited Cale Hutchinson from the Department of Ed. He's the industrial tech consultant, to meet with us virtually and have some conversations with us about best practice for industrial tech, specifically our intro course. We were seeing a lot of kids come into that intro course, and we were trying to figure out the best way to get some education in their hands around different areas of industrial tech, so they could maybe get some experiences and see whether they wanted to go into welding or small engines or construction, what they were interested in. So we began evaluating a few curriculums. Like I said, there weren't a ton of great resources out there. Most of them were textbook based, and that was really something we, after talking with Cale, weren't really interested in for our intro course. We wanted something that was hands-on and would get kids the experiences that they needed and the tools in their hands. But we did know that the middle school uses the DEPCO products, and that was something we were really interested in looking in. So we talked with Cale about that. He said that would be something really worth looking into. So we took a trip, the two guys and I, to Frontenac, Kansas, which is where the DEPCO company is based, so that we could see all of the kits we were really interested in having for our intro class. And that was a really great experience for us to really get our hands on the materials and to really see what they all looked like. There are other schools in Iowa, of course, that have this kit or this kit or this kit, but to see all of the kits that we wanted, that's why we chose to drive down to Frontenac and see everything right there. And then we got the quote and decided what we'd need, and we're here tonight. So, like I said, what we are really looking for is some curriculum for the intro to industrial arts. And in the past, prior to maybe 3 years ago, one teacher, so all three of our industrial tech teachers would teach all of the areas of the intro course. So they would teach plumbing, electricity, construction, welding. They each would teach all of those courses. And then last year we switched that so that the kids would rotate through all three teachers during the intro class. So they would see each of the guys twice for the different areas of industrial tech that we wanted them to get exposure to. So that's worked really well. So this Intro to Industrial Arts curriculum that we're talking about tonight would impact 6 sections each semester.
That's 3 teachers with 2 sections each, which is approximately 216 students a year. So the areas that we are covering, and that is building construction, intro to plumbing, and intro to electricity with these kits. And if you go to the next slide. So I want to just talk a little bit about the residential construction, and this was really exciting for us. So if you see the picture down in the lower right-hand corner, that's what we would like to purchase. So this is the residential construction kit, and the students would work through this in about 12 lessons, 15 with some college and career readiness lessons at the end. They learn how to demonstrate proper layouts of soffits and trusses, techniques for rough framing, assembling walls, trusses, rafters, and roofs. They do a lot of measuring and cutting of the small wood pieces. And then I learned to identify all the different kinds of tools and materials needed for construction. So you can see in the bottom corner, that's one kit. So it comes with everything that the students would need to complete the build over about 12 to 15 lessons, along with all the teacher materials, vocabulary, quizzes, everything comes right there. So 18 kits for 9 sections is going to be about $9,790. And then we would reuse those same kits again second semester. So he said that they can be used for about 6 to 7 years, a little bit longer if they've been taken really good care of. But that's kind of what the life has been for the saws and the power tools that come with the kits. Okay, so that's the first kit. The second kit is a residential plumbing kit, and you can see again in the bottom the picture of that. And this is probably, I don't know, a good...
It's big.
It's big. It's probably...
This whole table.
Yeah, the whole table. So
and that last one too, it's a lot bigger than what the pictures are. Like, it wouldn't fit on this table.
no, it would probably take 2 of these tables, but they're really neat because the kids learn how to do all the plumbing for residential plumbing right on this station. And then at the end of the semester, it all gets taken, or at the end of the rotation, it all gets taken apart, and then the next group of kids can do it again. So in plumbing, they learn how to plumb a kitchen faucet, to diagram a home's plumbing system, installing bathroom shower fixtures and drains, identifying pipes, installing kitchen faucets, and installation of proper water clean lines and wastewater lines. So these kits are a little bit more expensive. They're just really cool kits. So there are 18 kits at 9 sections is $42,255. So the last kit for our intro courses is the residential wiring kit. And again, this is about that same size. This board is a little bit flatter, but it is about the same size of board that gets reused for every rotation of kids. They learn how to diagram the wiring of a home, how to properly wire electrical components, do the ground wire, demonstrate safe residential wiring procedures, identify different kinds of electrical components, and proper installation of an electrical panel. And I think I mentioned before, but along with all of these kits also comes the student materials, like the student worksheets, the quizzes, vocabulary, and then 2 or 3, depending on the kit, lessons where they're like really investigating different careers in the area of electricity, in the area of plumbing, in the area of construction, so that the kids, as intro kids, they really can see what careers are out there in those areas. So if they are really into construction, they can research and learn about a job in construction and see if that's something that they would be interested in. So 18 kits, 9 per section, a cost of $26,025.
Do we have career trees on any of those areas right now?
We have career trees on construction. One more, there we go. Okay, so the other kit that we're proposing is a kit for Ben's course on small engines. This is a course that's pretty newly developed, pretty
we have a lack of materials for this area. A lot of the materials that Ben uses, he relies on getting donations, which is great, but not really for the intro level for kids that are just learning about small engines. So there's one section each semester, about 36 students per year. So if you go to the next slide, Amy. So this is the small engine kit, and this is for a 4-stroke small engine. And this would be about the first 15 classes of the small engine class. And the students are going to really learn how to assemble a 4-stroke engine, and these are all words I don't know, but pistons, and identify components. I maybe should set in on this one because they learn to describe the function of the piston, which I don't even know. And then they illustrate the 4-stroke sequence in that engine. They'll learn to assemble crankshafts, camshafts, and flywheels of a 4-stroke engine. So in these kits, it shows a computer, but the teacher can actually project anything that needs to be projected. The kids won't actually be on the computers. What the kids are going to be on is on those engines that you see on top of those workstations there. So each group of 2 kids would have their own toolkit workstation, and all of the tools that they need to work on the small engines are all in that, and really well specified when they'll need what. They were color coded. So step 1, you need to pull out the blue tools, and so they pull out all the blue tools, and then everything is really well organized. So for 9 kits for the small engines, it'd be $21,595. So our proposal, this is the cost outline for a proposal. We would love to get these 4 DEPCO modules, the residential construction for $9,790, plumbing, wiring, and the 4-stroke small engine, which gives a total cost of $99,665. We do have RPP funds available that we worked with Randy and Dr. Schutte on that would cover $41,735 of that cost. So we are asking for general funds of, sorry, Randy, $57,930 to cover the remainder of the cost for those kits. They do, especially the things like the construction, the plumbing, and the wiring, small things like we'll need to replenish the wire, we'll need to replenish some PVC pipe, some balsa wood or poplar, all of those things. The CEO of DEPCO, when he met with us, he said, it's just as cheap for you to get those at Menards than it is to buy like replenishing from me. And those are all really, really small costs. So those would be able to be covered in our industrial tech budgets every year.
Okay, that's one of the questions. And this impacts about 216 students a year?
216 for the intro course, and then another 36 for the small engine course. So just at 250.
250. That's reasonable.
And this will be a nice segue for our students who have all gone through Brian Winkler's class and been exposed on a smaller scale to different career clusters in terms of the CT areas.
Yeah, so the exciting thing about this is not only does it come with those really cool kits, but and where kids can really do the work, but it also comes with those curricular resources and teacher materials that we are really lacking in industrial tech. A lot of times when an industrial tech teacher is gone, the kids can't do the lab work because it's just not safe. So this would give us some choices for when the teacher is gone.
Right.
Too.
Well, and I think it really will help lead kids into the vocational realm, which is something we really need, and into the trades. I think the cost seems reasonable per child. I was figuring that out here.
I appreciate the fact that you looked at hands-on materials and not
Yes.
textbooks. Really appreciate that.
And I appreciate the limited use of the computer, that they're doing the hands-on and not everything on the computer. But I also appreciate the fact that you are currently using materials that predate the internet access. Because there is so much you can do by
absolutely.
researching how to do things. Yes.
Other questions or comments?
Will this lead, when I was in high school, my senior year, I built a house from ground up, was my class. And it created a lot of community pride. And, every time I drive by it, people say in the community, look, those high school kids built this, right? And do we have anything, whether it be maybe they're building a mooring building or a shed on top of this? I'd like to build a house for the community. We have community needs. We need homes, right? We have shortage of home builders. But do we have anything that goes along with this?
So what we're talking about today would be for that intro level course for all of industrial tech and then the small engines, of course. But the idea is right now that if a student is in that intro course and through that construction time in that intro course, then they can opt to take Construction Tech 1 or Construction Tech 2. Unfortunately, our current facilities right now, we don't have a high overhead door. We have just a regular size garage door. We can't build anything of size and get it out. So I know Raul Arevalo was really working on building a shed this year, but he had to build it outside and it could only be built on days when the weather was good. So our current facilities just don't really lead us to do many big projects, but I know in Construction Tech 1 and 2, especially 2, he gets them out in the community, doing things for the community, building things on site for different groups. So I know that's something that he's been doing on site, weather permitting, to get kids out there and get kids involved in the community.
And then,
You need a shed. Okay.
All right.
I'll put you down on the list, right?
Well, and within the plan, the preliminary designs, through the discussions with teachers and administration, there is an expansion of industrial arts area in addition to the renovation, just to make accommodations for that overhead as well. And to be able to get bigger things in and out and constructed, so.
That would be really exciting to start getting some revenue back into the program by doing that, just selling it for just a little more than.
at the time, I how the program worked, but I think it was for the citizens, they were able to get it pretty much with no tax, and the labor was pretty much free.
Yeah.
So it was a, great program at the time.
Yeah, as you're probably aware, the building program that used to be held by Iowa Valley went away about 7 years ago or so. And so they have just now brought back a high school career academy in construction trades. So the key is us developing kids and getting them ready for a program like that. And the program will probably better serve them while those kids are in high school, because right now the market is such, you don't need a college degree to go into the trades. In fact, you can just go and the trades union will put you through an apprenticeship or whatever you need to learn what you need to do to go to work right away. So the college recognizes that. But it's still important to get the students to a level of preparedness to be able to do that type of work. And if we're able to grow our programs and the numbers, I think that will help drive what might be possible in the future, whether it's through us, through Iowa Valley, or within the community.
I think it would be, because we're thinking of having this, it would be beneficial to have those trees on some of the ones that we don't have, like the plumbing, just so the kids can see what type of careers can evolve from this class if they really like it.
Yeah, and they do. We did, Dr. Sheedy and I were able to tour a career academy that had some cool career trees up in each of their rooms. So that is something that I can develop with these guys, definitely, to get ready for the new area. We get that.
I know I utilize it.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the purchase of 4 different Depco models and the approximate total cost of $99,665 as presented? The cost, $41,735 to be paid out of RPP and $57,930 in general fund.
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis, Wall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say no. Motion carries 7-0.
Awesome, thanks.
Have fun.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, enjoy.
Thanks for coming.
I wanna learn the plumbing. I've never known. Just things happen in your house.
That's what it used to be.
All right. I get to stay up here with you. We are here tonight and we're going to propose our 7 through 12 curriculum adoption. We actually will be proposing that we adopt for 7-8 and we put our 9 through 12 on hold. We will explain that more in detail in our presentation. This is just a discussion tonight, so I will come back in a couple weeks and we'll seek approval. All right, so we started the beginning of the year with monthly meetings with our science adoption team, and you can see all of the names represented here. We, of course, wanted to make sure that we had a combination of stakeholders represented at the table, including our science teachers at all levels, the 7 through 12, and then also our leadership participation. So you'll just see a nice representation of teachers and leaders who were a big part of this work.
Hey, Shauna.
Yeah.
Can you introduce the other people at the table?
I absolutely can. I'm so sorry. So you know Jen O'Neill. She's our curriculum professional development leader for 7 through 12. And then this is Kirsten Bobby. She's our 8th grade science teacher at Miller. And she agreed to come with us tonight. So I think she's really excited. The other two looked really nervous, and I hope you're not nervous because these guys are great. So. Okay, so I'm going to explain just kind of how we get started with our curriculum adoption. We asked our science teachers what their utopia would be. So essentially looking for what would a perfect science classroom look like, and using that as our target to continually push towards. So it's kind of interesting hearing some of you speak to the industrial tech adoption and how it was hands-on. And we literally just spent the day on Friday together as a science team really hammering out this decision, and that was a big part of our conversation as well. So we absolutely identify with the need for our students to have these authentic experiences and to be able to act, to talk, to write, and to speak like scientists do, and then really trying to hook our students through curiosity.
So one of the things you'll see here is kind of our visual roadmap of our curriculum adoption process. Every 6 to 7 years, we have a curriculum adoption cycle, and we start kind of with a needs assessment. So Shauna kind of already talked about how the very first thing we do is convene a committee made up of leadership and teachers. And then we read and examine research, we look at board policy, we look at the standards, and then we as a team create the criteria that we are going to evaluate curricular resources on. That was a long process. It took us quite a long time, but we had some really, really good discussions. The next step then was to take that criteria and start to evaluate those potential materials. So we had several that we looked at to evaluate, and then we kind of narrowed it down from there. So what I told the team was our work was more of the surface level, what we can see with our own eyes, and then we score those, and then we bring in representatives from vendors to present and kind of give us more of a deeper dive so we can really see what those materials look like. Decide on recommendations, and you can see that we're in the end of phase 2 here with you today, presenting what we found and what our recommendations will be. We'll move on to phase 3, hopefully, with your blessing. And then from there, our work continues, creating that timeline, curriculum maps, and pacing. I think one of the things that our team really talked about that is important to all of us is that continued education for all stakeholders. You notice that it was a team of science teachers, but not the entire 712 science department. So it's really important to us to ensure that everyone is onboarded, and then there's continuing professional development as well. We'll monitor and evaluate the implementation, look at data, and then just create that plan for ongoing review. So Shauna also mentioned we just spent Friday all day looking at 4 vendors that presented. So we ended up scoring 6 curricular resources with our locally developed criteria that we all came to consensus on. And we used research to create those. After hearing from 4 vendors, we had an additional scoring session with our teachers for each of those resources, since we did get that deeper dive. And every teacher, regardless of what course or grade level, scored everything. So we really wanted to ensure biases were not coming into play, that we were really using that criteria to score. So you can see, after much deliberation, our 7th and 8th grade team, we would like to recommend the use of Open SciEd through Activate Learning. So Activate Learning is the vendor that has taken materials and content from Open SciEd, which is an open resource, and have compiled those into units so that teachers, it's way more accessible for teachers. If you know anything or have looked up open resource, I call it, I think I've told Kirsten this, I call it the abyss, because everything and anything is out there, and it's not always organized nicely and can take a great amount of time to dig through. Also, science, thinking about hands-on, we really wanted to ensure that we had materials. Science should be hands-on. And so through Activate Learning, we're able to get curricular materials for teachers, the online platform for teachers and students, kit materials, hands-on kit materials. You'll see in a little bit, there's just a short little overview video of Open SciEd through Activate Learning. So really it was a nice fit because everything is coming from this one company. For 9th through 12th grade, we proposed pausing any type of adoption. One of the main reasons we decided to do that is of the materials we were looking at for high school, a lot of the copyright dates were not very new. So currently, we have a 2017 version in biology, and the one that was being proposed to us was a 2019 copyright. That was disappointing to us.
That we can have access to.
That we can have
digitally.
access to, right.
So we'd literally only be buying the textbook.
Yeah.
In that scenario.
Right. I think also one of the things that we talked about as a team, Open SciEd is still developing content for high school, and they should be completed with that summer of 2024. And so thinking about the possibility of looking at Open SciEd also for high school, this pause gives us an opportunity to do that. And then a third bullet is we would like to also consider that potential renovation to science classrooms at the high school, and materials that we purchase really need to go hand in hand with that. So that was another reason we decided to kind of not at this time recommend anything for 9th through 12th grade that's different from what they're doing yet.
So in this situation, we can actually just extend by a year with what they're currently using, and that gives us or buys us some time in waiting for what Open SciEd is able to develop, or maybe even Pearson or some of these other vendors will be able to push something else that's new. Personally, I've never adopted something that's already 6 years old. I think that's really an oxymoron in some ways, because you know something different is coming your way. And then when you look at the data of those NGSS standards when they were released, it just makes me consider whether or not the resources were actually adapted to the standards, like I know Open SciEd have been, because they were developed from the ground up after the release of the standards. So this is kind of curriculum instruction assessment kind of talk, but this is just kind of the 101 version that I feel is really necessary in pausing the adoption. I don't feel like our time was wasted by any means, because we did a lot of research and professional resources, and we talked a lot about our standards, and I think that utopia of knowing where we want to go for science is really important. But we're really excited about what we have for the middle school. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, right? I promise, right?
No, I'm really excited.
Yeah.
So can you tell us what you like about this?
Yes.
I've actually been using Open SciEd for almost 2 years now. And so the thing that I really like is students have authentic learning. Like they're actually figuring things out. I don't tell them the answer. So we're looking at something hands-on, and students are kind of digging into that thing, and afterwards we talk about what have we figured out and how does that help us get to what our driving phenomena is, and answering, you know, what's going on. So they're always starting with something that they're trying to figure out, and we're building those pieces through hands-on learning, and they're coming together to build a consensus together. So they're discussing, they have some hands-on, tangible things, and they're really building an understanding with each other, and that's really authentic science. Science isn't, as one of our presenters said, science isn't a person in a lab telling us what science is, and then we write it in our notebooks, and then we take a test over it. So it's just more authentic learning, I think.
And I think I can take off my CPDL hat for just a moment. As a parent, my daughter was in Kirsten's 8th grade class, and probably the most excited and the most conversation we've ever had about science in our household. Lots of hands-on, like we were talking about penguins the other day, and she was explaining how their group was coming to this conclusion that this penguin might be related to these penguins because of these features, and they had to sort them out. And it was, I don't know, it's really exciting because they came to the table with, what do I really want to learn about this? And Kirsten didn't mention that something really significant with Open Syed is they operate with a driving question board, and so the kids are really driving the learning with the questions that they want answered. So it's great.
Yeah, as a teacher, I'm not a science teacher. I found students talking in my class about science, about what, you know, they're still trying to figure out the answer to whatever they were discussing in science class when they come in, and that is really cool. That is great.
So I do have, Amy, I don't know if you can go to the next slide. There's just like this is like a minute 48, and you really only need to play like the first minute maybe. This just kind of gives you an idea of what it is we were looking at from Activate Learning. Hopefully you're able to open that. You're fine.
And it's okay.
And it's okay if it doesn't.
We could always email it. It's okay.
I just don't have the actual.
I think if you just click on that, it's linked to the YouTube video but maybe not.
Yep, it is. Oh, sorry. Here in the PDF.
It's hiding.
Yeah, click on that page in the PDF.
There you go.
Yeah, just click there and it'll open.
Yeah,
There you
sorry,
go.
I am better than an arms.
Activate Learning is proud to partner with Open Syed to provide print books, certified science kits, digital teacher and student resources, and professional learning services to support implementation of the Open Syed curriculum. When schools purchase Open Syed science kits or books from Activate Learning, they also unlock the Activate Learning digital platform for teachers. The teacher edition of Open Syed by Activate Learning includes all of the materials the teachers need to lead Open Syed lessons. In one click, teachers can use lesson launchers to see the slides for each day alongside the student edition, handouts, and materials. It's everything teachers need to launch a lesson. If you need to access the complete Open Syed Teacher Edition materials, everything is intuitively organized in a plan, teach, assign, assess approach. The plan and teach sections provide all the background and planning information teachers may also need to launch and teach a lesson. This is where you'll find detailed guidance on how to modify the units for time constraints, teach lessons out of sequence, and promote equity. Additional support is provided through direct links to professional learning for your district. It's all under one platform.
When you purchase books or kits from Activate Learning, your teachers get our easy-to-use interactive Teacher Edition with everything they need to succeed with OpenSciEd. To learn more, go to activatelearning.com.
And I think too, that video just really speaks to, again, OpenSciEd is an open resource, but this particular vendor has nicely put that all together for teachers. So teachers aren't spending hours and hours and hours like Kirsten has been doing in the past 2 years, digging through that abyss.
When I saw that, the more recent slides, it reminded me of Defined Learning
Yep.
in terms of how it was organized.
Yeah, I think it is organized very similarly, and it is just, I think, really nice to have everything in one place, because you've also operated with OpenSciEd differently, not all kind of captured in one place. So obviously there might be some consumable costs in the future, but again, like Jenny kind of spoke to this earlier, those are things that we could find much cheaper other places later on. The quote that you're going to see, really, it shows everything that our 6 middle school science teachers need for every single unit, including kits and materials for every single unit, access for all students. So that's about 750 students for 6 years. We did look at ed reports and OpenSciEd as an open resource. And again, Activate Learning just compiled it. So OpenSciEd as an open resource was only one of 2 materials that were highly rated as exceptional for science materials for middle school. So that we did take that into consideration too. And obviously this is aligned to NGSS, as Shauna mentioned. They did not start the development of OpenSciEd until NGSS was released. So we're very confident knowing that students are going to get the type of learning that they should be getting with our new science standards.
Questions, comments?
They're basically taking the open curriculum and they're making it more accessible to teachers.
Yeah. Yes, and what Activate Learning has done too is they've also looked at, so not sure how familiar you are with the standards, but NGSS, when they came out 2015, Iowa then took those standards and decided to just put the standards in the grade levels and the courses that they wanted them to be in. And so not all curriculums being developed have done that, because not all states have done that. So one of the nice things that Activate Learning has done is they have actually built options for Iowa standards. That was really appealing to us.
Yes, that's really nice.
Okay. Well, this will come back next meeting in June for approval. So if there's any other questions or comments tonight, here's the chance. Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work, a lot of work.
Okay, that lighting is really terrible. Can I just really quick turn off the light and turn it back on?
It's better be good for some moonlight.
I actually prefer a softer lighting, so I'm just kidding.
Sure, but you make everybody else sit there in the harsh light.
Yeah,
so then it makes you look even better by comparison, right? Yeah.
I showed you from the best light this whole 2 hours. Okay. I've talked to a few of you, and I know that you're very well aware of the amount of projects we have in the tech department. And sometimes when I just come up here and ask for this thing or for that thing, it's kind of hard to see it contextually, and it's hard to know if we're sort of willy-nilly getting these
things done or if there's a big plan. So I'm kind of here to, first of all, assure you that there is a big plan and then ask you for a lot of things. So what I wanted to start with is just outside of this slide is to kind of tell you what we've got going on as a district. You hear the curriculum adoptions, and almost all of them include technology. You hear about some of the modular tech stuff happening, and we have servers on the back end. We're working, you hear Jackie come up and ask for new course offerings, and we're ensuring that the tech works for the Unity game design and that sort of thing. So there's a lot going on, and we really work hard to make sure that our students have really the very best to ensure that they're ready. So I just wanted to give you some numbers. We have 8 people in the tech department, and we have about 8,000 Google and AD Active Directory users. We have 380 desktops, 8,066 Chromebooks, 642 phones, 325 projectors, about 255 security cameras, and we're going to ask you for some more tonight. Over 200 switches, over 400 access points, over 40 copiers, over 100 printers. And then we have 11 buildings that we're securing their network. So we have software such as KnowBe4 that we administer to help with training staff to understand how to keep these things secure. We also help secure SUI, PowerSchool, Infinite Campus, Google, Microsoft Office, Destiny, HappyFox, Vigilon, Verkada, BadgePass, Tableau, Forecast5, and many more, actually. So as you can see, that's quite a bit for a staff of 8 to be working on, but I really think that we do a good job, and I think that we have people in place who not only know their job well, but they have made connections with people that we really trust in the private sector to help advise on the things that we should be doing. So even if it feels like we're running a sprint in a marathon, we're actually really trying to do it with some checks and balances and some reason behind why we make the choices that we make. So with that said, this summer alone, we do have some really important things that we're working on, and I just wanted to run down the list of those. This is not an exhaustive list, actually, but these are some of like the bigger things that I just wanted to draw your attention to. So we just, probably as of tomorrow, we'll have our vape detector and that whole initiative installed and then integrated with our camera system. So we got it installed a number of weeks ago, but there's a lot of configuration that takes place, kind of figuring out the sensitivity, making sure that audible alarms are turned on, making sure certain people are notified, making sure those groups are also trained to know what the different lights mean, what the different notifications mean, and then setting it up with our camera system to ensure that as soon as a notification happens, a camera starts recording outside of the restroom. So something happened in a locker room or a restroom, the camera starts recording outside of it, not inside, and then you can record whoever comes out of that restroom. So that's just one tool on how we're thinking about ensuring that vaping does not happen in our schools. So we're working out the kinks with that, but it is installed and we're really excited about it. It's working. Ask any administrator in the 5 through 12 setting if they're getting notifications, and they are. And that's not all vape or THC. There are some environmental noises. It doesn't record conversations, but it will pick up loud noises and alert, maybe there's a fight going on. And there haven't been, but they could do that. So sometimes right now the toilet flushes and it goes off, and Brian Isgrig knows about it. So we're working on those sensitivity functions. Audio enhancement, the cable was just run a couple of weeks ago. So Andrew got the switches for that installed today. So that should be happening over the next few weeks. That's for the high school. And that's that paging system that actually has some security features and has some instructional video features as well, and helps amplify a teacher's voice, which is very helpful. And we have that, something I didn't mention, in at least 8 of our buildings. Now we've got Lightspeed in 6 of them, and this will be the second building for audio enhancement. Teachers are reporting that they love, especially the audio amplification portion of that. MHS security project, that's something I will bring to you tonight. That has really been an exhaustive look, and what the right move for us to make is, both financially, but also with the amount of support that we need with a system this big. We had to really look into the support that we needed for that, and helped make a decision for us. The fiber for the Welcome Center got installed today. I actually had a Plan B already purchased in the basement and ready to be installed if it didn't get installed, but we got it going. So hopefully in the next day or two, we'll have internet and phones at the Welcome Center. So very exciting there. The MMS door access is underway. That front door of the Miller Middle School will have a video intercom reader similar to other buildings where you can push a button, say, hey, I'm here, can you let me in? And that secures the entrance and allows people into a kind of a weatherproof area so they're not standing out in the rain, but they're also secure in that vestibule until they're buzzed in to get into the building. That's underway. We have the equipment should be installed in the next week or two. The roundhouse to stadium fiber construction, that was part of E-rate. So we actually ran fiber from the roundhouse to where the new stadium will be. So we paid for that mostly using E-rate, which was helpful in the overall scheme of things, and it kind of took that off the plate of the stadium project. So that has been bored, and on Friday they will be here to finish the fiber for that. The stadium itself, we have switches, cameras, access points, all going into the area, whether it be in buildings, whether it be posted outside of buildings so that Wi-Fi is amplified and that sort of thing. That's going in as well. We are updating our business lab. Basically, we're allowing a class to use the esports lab, which is really exciting. So we've purchased 6 more computers for that esports lab, and we're partnering with the business department so that they can use that a couple blocks during the day to be able to teach that Unity game design course. Those computers are really the only computers we have on campus that will run Unity. So it was a neat opportunity for us. Our website is nearing completion. Abby and I have been thinking that we probably are going to need a couple weekend retreats to get it done, and then maybe a couple weekend retreats after it's done. But it has been a labor of love, and we are getting closer, and Stalzers were so wonderful today. The Chromebook replacements I'm going to ask you about today as well. Every year we replace 3 grade levels, and that basically equates to every 4 years a student gets a new device. The Vivi Elementary wireless projecting, that is something that's a little different that you haven't heard about because we didn't spend enough money for you to really need to think about it yet, but we're basically installing it in a couple buildings to think about a wider adaptation, and that is to help teachers be able to roam around with their laptops and not have to be plugged into one spot. And we've really heard that over and over, that that's something that they need. But it also is helpful financially for us because we have had extenders and things that have worked in the past start to go bad, and those are no longer being replaced, and because everything is switching to wireless. So we've really struggled to find the right thing for teachers to be able to plug in their devices as adapters change, as the settings for projectors and computers and the power settings start to change. So this will be a way to wirelessly project. And then we're also working on MMS and MHS with a little bit of a different spin on that using something called iProject. So that's happening. Today we got our new tech summer help to help us blow out projectors and clean up things to prepare for that. And they started at Miller. And then last but not least, of things that I thought were good to bring up today is we had a server fail on us. And it was a pretty big server. And I have to give a lot of props to Sebastian Ramirez. He kind of MacGyvered another system together to make us be secure and to get through the school year. But we really need a replacement for that. All of these things we have on replacement cycles. It's a giant jigsaw puzzle of what year we can pay for this and what year we can pay for this. So this was something that threw a bit of a curveball at us, but I have worked with Randy and we've really figured out a way to ensure that we can keep up and running and maybe even improve a few of our processes. Okay, sorry, I meant to be a lot more brief with that. Does anyone have any questions as far as my presentation goes?
Amy, I appreciate you. There's a long list. You and your team have done a great job of keeping the school district put together with all the different projects we have going, so great job.
That's pretty impressive.
Thank you very much. I give a lot of credit to my team, most of the credit to my team. Okay. I think I'm on to esports. Abby, do you want to hit escape on there? Yep. I don't think I could. Okay. Oh, I got it. Thank you. Okay. So the next thing on the agenda is I am acting as Ryan Isgrig. He actually had baseball stuff tonight, and we've been working hand in hand with this, so I believe that I can answer most of your questions that you might have about this. I'm here to present a new esports coordinator position. As you might have heard, our esports teams have been doing very well. We went to state in the winter, and then on Friday, we just went to state again, and this time in Smash Brothers, which would be Mario Kart. And it was a really good showing. We made it to basically the silver bracket. So we didn't make it to that gold bracket, but they really did well. And Andrew was going to text me, and he did. Okay, so we got 9th overall at state. And I mean, those kids, it's just so fun to watch them interact, and I think the guys have done an incredible job with them. It's Jose Ramirez, Andrew Klossman, and Logan Wolf have been the main few coaches. This year we had 2 head coach positions. We would have had 3, but we didn't get started in the fall. And now as we go into this new year, we will fill those 3 head coach positions. And it's just good to note that these seasons are long and there's 2 games, so there's usually a lot of kids. There's usually JV and varsity for each game. And then they're juggling all of that to make sure they all get to practice and then play. And you only have 1 head coach. So we really think, first of all, the league requires a coordinator. But we really thought, let's make sure that this is a position that truly kind of realizes and understands what this position will be doing, which will be supporting 3 head coaches throughout 3 seasons, so pretty much the whole year supporting esports. They'll help make decisions about the technology. They'll help stay in contact with the league, ensuring that we're adapting the newest policies and procedures of the league. And then they also help with the administration of the league overall. And then they also have coaching duties. So if a head coach can't be there, if they need help live streaming, this person can step in. So we thought it was a really good addition, just to help those guys along throughout the whole year.
Yeah, so each season, fall, winter, spring, have distinctly different games that are played. And those games sometimes change year in and year out. And so there's different knowledge and skill sets involved with the different games. And so the neat thing is there's a lot of potential for other adults to want to step up and be a coach at different junctures. But we really, I think, and what you're asking for is not really that much different than when Dan Tronis and them originally presented. They had hoped the program would eventually grow, be successful, and evolve to a point where we needed a coordinator. And as we met with other schools and we're trying to determine the best way to staff it for us, many of them had done this very thing, started off small, realized they needed to get more people involved and have someone that maybe started it as a coach become a coordinator. So the exciting thing is how quickly it became very engaging for students and successful for the school.
Are there specific skills that this coordinator would need to have in place that our activity athletic director doesn't have? That I'm wondering why this doesn't fall under the activity athletic director position like other activities at the high school.
Well, the athletic director does have oversight of this program as well as all the others, but this is like 3 more varsity sports being added to the plate each season. So, or 2 sports each season, or 6 total sports with the coaches and stuff. And so it's kind of a unique beast in and of itself. So the activities director is over the whole thing, but this is someone that would be laser focused on helping orchestrate that particular program year-round, or school year-round, I should say, because they don't operate in the summertime.
So is this someone who's teaching during the day and doing this differently, or is this a separate position? I'm having a total idea.
We didn't put that requirement on it. It is a stipend, so I don't believe it has to be a Marshalltown School District employee. It would be similar to a coaching position. The league actually requires a coordinator, and some schools have done that differently. But because there's such a demand on these coaches with the 2 games each season, we didn't feel that it was really fair to one coach to have to coordinate and try to coach at that same time. So there's some requirements like having to be highly engaged in Discord app, which is a way for gamers to talk to each other. And that's not something we would really expect Ryan to know how to do. There are some more technical components of it that, again, not really something that Ryan would know how to do. So there would be some heavy engagement from the tech department as far as that goes as well.
And the union was fully supportive of adding this position to the salary schedule.
So it really is a different type of position than what we've had before.
It is, and it's not something that every sport requires that there be one of these.
Other questions? Is there a motion to approve the esports coordinator position with a stipend of $4,925 as presented?
Move to approve. Second.
Was that you, Karina? Lowry Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
Great,
You're off
thank
to a
you.
good start.
3 more to go. Let's not lose steam. Okay, so the next thing I'm proposing is that server replacement that I told you about. We actually had what's called a blade array, which is a storage piece of hardware that in layman's terms connects to a server that does the CPU, that has the processing power. And when it went down, we lost internet, we lost a bunch of things, but basically we couldn't piecemeal it together to fix it. So it was already over 5 years old. So we decided to engage with a company that we've worked with and that we trust for support, Heartland Business Systems. They are a member of Sourcewell. And because we trust them so much and have consulted with them, with Sebastian specifically, when we're looking about how we're going to design and architect things, it was really kind of our choice to see if we could work with them and get a server through Sourcewell rather than go out to competitive bid, because we trust them so much on the implementation side of things. So they quoted us, it looks like 2 different quotes, but it's actually, one is the compute side and one is the storage side. So compute is that CPU or GPU if you're talking graphics. And then the storage side is how you're storing your data. So we need both. And in this instance, this is really kind of the minimum of what we need. So the price tag looks daunting, but actually I did pull what we had paid on the blade storage 5 years ago, and that was actually more than what we're asking right here. So this is my recommendation, that we go ahead with Heartland Business Systems through the Sourcewell Consortium, due to our excellent relationship with them on both the consulting side and the purchasing of hardware.
So policy-wise, are we okay going ahead just with the recommendation and not going out for other bids?
Yes, because since we're going through Sourcewell, it's similar to our AEA purchasing co-op. It meets the requirements of our board policy by using, when we're part of those co-op purchasing agreements, that covers our board policy with
Great,
those.
thank you. Good.
Have you seen any other recent quotes for similar types of equipment?
Yes, and so I'm constantly working with Dell, working with HP, seeing demos. This is actually lower on the spectrum, and it's because of the RAM that we purchased for this. The specific RAM that we purchased is a less expensive RAM, but still every bit as quality. So that's why I went with this. I really did have budget in mind with this, understanding that obviously we need it to work and we need it to work well. But the original quote I had looked at was more like $120,000. So, and that's with Sebastian and I kind of, let's look at our different vendors and let's piece together the parts. And the engineer at Heartland really walked us through how it could work really well with this setup. And it'll actually be easier for Sebastian to manage this way. And that's what I really like about it, is we actually got him certified in VMware, which are virtual servers, and that's what this will be doing. So we've built capacity in our team, and this will reflect that.
Amy, is there any type of warranty on the server at all?
There is service on it, so you have to buy licensing for it, similar to like the Cisco, all the hardware we buy. So with that, yes, and it depends on how many years you're going to buy, but 3 years is typical.
So 5 years is a long time on a server?
Yeah, I mean, 6 months is a long time right now. It is silly.
I mean,
But,
you said it had failed and it was 5 years old. So
5 years, there were a few things that maybe there were some pain points for it that maybe caused it to happen a little sooner than what we thought it would. And it was pretty difficult to update and to back up just the way that the array was put together. But yeah, I would expect 5 years. I wouldn't want to push it much further than that, which I know seems like quite a price tag for that, but it's the way things are going. And actually things are only getting more expensive with some of the subscription purchases. You can no longer just buy something and have it be yours and have it work. You have to buy something and then license it every year. So
this comes with a 3-year service agreement, and then you'd have to renew the service agreement. Is that what you would do?
yeah, and it all depends on it really depends. We would make some decisions at year 3 on what you're paying for and what you're not. So it's kind of like a liability insurance instead of full coverage kind of thing.
Other questions? Is there a motion to approve the purchase of a server and storage replacement through Heartland Business Systems in the amount of $83,026.41 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Wall, Stanley? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, this next one, we did go out for competitive bid, and CDW ended up being our winner. We actually have 2 different quotes on here because I wanted to look at some different cases to see if we might go with different cases other than Gumdrop, and they ended up being our favorite anyway. So we went with CDWG for both the cases and the Chromebooks and some carts, some charging carts, which are primarily used in our elementaries, and that was a total of $462,520, which is pretty typical of what we spend yearly. It's not really outside of that range. And I did do some research and digging, Zach, and we've really been pushing our Chromebooks a year longer in many aspects because of our really in-depth repair service that we do. So Jerry is a new member of our team, and she is our repair person, so she's keeping these devices repaired even longer than we typically would. And then we have a really great loaner program, so as things go bad, there's always a backup for kids, and we have that in every building now, which before we weren't as robust. We might have had 1 extra device in each classroom, but this looks more like 10 or 20. So we do usually use quite a few, if not the majority, of the devices a year longer than the 4 years.
So they're replaced every 4 years, but the ones that are so operable turn into loaners and can be swapped out as necessary.
Exactly. And then we also, if you've been seeing some of our obsolete items, we sell, major quantities every year, which is a newer practice in the last 3 or 4 years. Before it would be who can dispose of these from us, and now it's who can buy them from us and keep using them until they're actually no longer working.
Any other questions?
So Amy, kind of going back to that, I have 4 kids, you have kids, and unfortunately younger kids usually get, the hand-me-downs, right? And so I look at this, and a question I have is, can we look at down the road, I'm glad to hear we're going out maybe 5 years, but can we push those Chromebooks down to those kindergartners after 4 years, and they get it for another 3 years? Is that enough for them to do what they need to do?
Well, we've really, I really like this district and some of our great CPDLs because they've really looked into what's best for kids. And at the kindergarten and first grade level, we use touchscreens because of how difficult those trackpads are. So we want them using the technology, but developmentally, they're not ready for that mouse pad, for the trackpad. So that's why we replaced in second grade. So our kindergarten and first grade looks a little bit different, but then we replaced second grade and fifth grade and eighth grade so that it makes it all the way through elementary, all the way through to junior high, and then all the way through high school. So we wouldn't go down to kindergarten, and truthfully, the way that we have the replacement plan, these devices aren't actually, that I've seen, getting more expensive. They're holding pretty true, and they're making them more and more easily repaired. So I really would prefer to continue doing what we're doing. I don't think we're really losing any money from it. In fact, I think we're really gaining a lot by having a repair person on site. That's my opinion.
Anything else? Then we need a motion to approve the CDWG bid in the amount of $462,520 to replace 3 grades of Chromebooks and cases as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Wall Faltus. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
Okay, last thing, and this is another, I think this is really exciting, and I hope that you think so too. This is the bid from Convergent. I'm not sure if you've heard of Convergent, but they're one of the biggest technology companies, and they're rated #1 in a lot of things, but they work a lot in the K-12 realm with security, and they actually support Avigilon, which Avigilon is what we have in most of our buildings. It's what we have in the high school, and Avigilon is owned by Motorola. Motorola owns Ava and OpenPath. So that is the newer camera system that we have at Miller Middle School, and then that OpenPath is what we have approved to go into the middle school and the Orpheum. It's a really state-of-the-art door access system that can even use a cell phone instead of a badge. If I want to, Leah needs into the Orpheum, I could actually send her through her phone access to get in on a one-time basis. So there's some really neat technology there that keeps things even more secured. I don't have to give her a visitor badge that I may never see again or I forget about. One time it expires at midnight, here you go. The Ava is the system that isn't going to make us have NVRs and replace NVRs. NVRs are the storage systems that are storing our data on site. So we're still going to store some data on site from our legacy camera system, Avigilon, but these actually work a little bit differently and they don't need that infrastructure. So we are looking very closely at how we can eliminate some of our bigger costs, and we think that is one of them, to switch to this sort of hybrid method and then replace to the Ava camera as we go along. This system, what this is doing, it's not only adding, I think it's 25 cameras to the high school. Can't remember if it's 20 or 25. Yeah, 25 cameras to the high school, but it's also adding what's called a cloud connector, and that cloud connector will be what will pull all of the cameras, the legacy cameras, into this system to put it all on one platform. So that way we don't have to look at 3 different platforms. So truthfully, this will add so many cameras to the high school, and it'll update what's there, and then we'll have a plan moving forward with how to update cameras as they die. And then we'll have all of our systems, including door access, on one system. And then the benefit to me to going with Convergent, this actually is a higher priced item than some of our other quotes. They do use Sourcewell as well. So they are part of a consortium that would allow us to go with this bid, but they're up the road. Right now, we're waiting for people from Kansas City to get here, and it's 5 days and $1,200 to have them say, oh, that camera's broken. So they're less than an hour away. They come, they help us get set up quickly, and then they also have grant writers on staff for some of the grants that are out there for this kind of thing. So I really look forward to next year filling out the COPS grant and trying to get some things paid for with their help. So at this point, it would be a one-time purchase of $175, $359. And then hopefully in the future, we can really try to leverage some of our other sources to keep things updated.
How is the door security at the high school changing with this?
Yeah, that's very exciting. Both the west doors that actually face north, that you have to call someone now and they let you in, those will be replaced, and Todd's doing that. And what?
Maybe they will, we'll see.
Oh, okay. Oh, I mean, with your blessing, those will be replaced. And then the open path system will go on those, and then they'll go on the east doors that are right off that staff parking lot that's like a main student entrance as well. So both of those doors will now have badge-in video intercom systems. Push the button, the secretary lets you in that way, directs you to come to the office to sign in.
And she'll be able to see who's there.
Yes. Yep, it's a video intercom reader, so it works as a badge reader and a video and an intercom button.
Yeah, because our current system really is you wait at the door till a student lets you in.
Yeah, and if it's raining, it's really not fun.
That's what it ends up being. Yeah, right.
I know. I've walked in before and I've like carded the students. I'm like, I'm not letting you in until you show me who you are, and it's just not ideal. Right, yeah. So, yeah, we'd love to see a vestibule in there and stuff, but at this point, this is the way that we can secure it to the best of our ability. So that's part of. So the door access controller and intercom readers are on this, and then the doors are separate.
What's the source of funding for this?
So you'll recall that earlier this spring with the budget changes and that with different circumstances, we were actually able to still lower the tax rate but free up save dollars. So there's about $2 million a year that we had saved up. So that'll be coming out of some of that contingency, I guess, that we freed up.
Okay. Any other questions? We need a motion to approve the bid from Convergent in the amount of $175,359.93 for security and door access project at Marshalltown High School as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Lowry, Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. You got them all, Amy. Nice work.
Hey, thank you so much. I'm sorry you had to listen to me for that long.
Hello, Todd.
Hello.
This about the doors?
One item is, yes. Obviously, it's the summer projects list, kind of like as I mentioned in news and notes, last fall, when I did the tour with EMC Insurance, kind of our safety and risk, or not really the safety and risk assessments, but insurance hazard assessments. Went around at that time, obviously, we noted a lot of concrete that's either broken, uneven, everything. So I want to kind of address a lot of that and get a lot of that taken care of this year with that, kind of minimize that. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to take care of all the district's problems with that, but I'm going to get them on a EMC. We do have a spreadsheet, and I'll fit them in and try to work as we go and get the higher tier ones taken care of right away, along with some of the others. I'll probably also sit in at some point with Mr. Whedon on some of the internal as well, because there's some things we'll be doing a little different to also promote internal building safety. That'll come, I'm sure I'll work in conjunction with him on. But like some of the main ones right now, like I said, it was concrete replacement. The high school, the 2 doors that Amy mentioned, which are actually doors 10, which would be that 2 double sets of doors there on the east side of the building, and then door number 1 in the front. That would be to replace with a more modern style door that's actually functional, new hardware on that, and then, as Amy alluded to, she would pick up the electronic portion that would actually control it. Another big ticket item is the high school's water heaters they have over there. Currently, they have 4 large water heaters we use for that building. They're approximately 16 years old, so just trying to plan once again, another swap out process before they all completely drop out. So I'm looking to replace 2 this year, and then possibly either 1 or 2 the following year, depending on other buildings' needs as well. I do have another item, Franklin's, the 4 furnace units. As you know, the last 2 years, and then even prior to me sitting as Buildings and Grounds Director, we had started the replacement of the furnace units in the penthouses on the top of Franklin. This would have all those units fully replaced and taken care of at that building. The only other older pulse units we have are internal in the building, which are far easier to access at any time, that wouldn't be a disruption to any kind of classes. So we wanted to get the higher element ones, and the 4, usually we do it in groups of 4, just because of the way everything packs in there. It just makes it a much cleaner project. I guess, what was some other? There's going to be some hallway tile replacements, additional of a media center door there at Hoagland. If you're familiar with the media center, just off as you walk in where the counter sits, off to the right, there's also, I think it used to be one of the old computer labs that they use for a room. We're looking to put a door there, so it'll make it more of a classroom that they can have, and then you're not getting all the cross noise from that area. Let's see. At Rogers Elementary, I had the upper roof replacement. That one's, it's about time that it is done. I have sustained several different leaks, nothing catastrophic at this point, but it's definitely aging. So want to try to be a little proactive and get that portion of the building. That would cover the very upper, and then the next little step down. The very far east addition is relatively new, as I'd say, for the building. And it's in excellent condition for that. And then the rest is pretty much painting, some plaster repairs. I'll have a few different carpet repairs. And that's it. But a lot of the main higher items I have is, like I said, a lot of the concrete work. If we do move for approval, Some of that I plan on doing either complete replacements. I've met with several different contractors for that. I've also worked with another company that could help us in grinding that does that can actually grind a lot of the sidewalks. They provide excellent data sheets and hold a lot of patents right now on that type of work to get us back in ADA compliance with that. And then I'm also meeting with possible companies that could lift maybe some areas that have settled, but I think I'll look at more of those next year. Mainly I want to get the big stuff replaced or settled for now. Are there any real questions on any of them you might have or want me to further clarify?
How does this compare with previous, is most of this kind of within what you would normally do for a summer schedule? How does this kind of compare year over year for a summer repair schedule?
I know some years they would rotate on carpet replacement, which last year I was able to get a tremendous amount of carpet replaced throughout the buildings. Once we knew the cafeterias, we'd be able to go back into the cafeteria. I have some right now that are good, but they'll probably fall into next year. I can patch and get replacement areas to buy us another year or two, but they fall into my list for either, depending on how funding's running next season, that I can do 2 or 3 at a building at a time. Painting, a lot of that, we try to do as much of that in-house. Obviously, with the great amount of people we pulled on this year for summer help, we might be able to do that a lot easier because, so far we've got a pretty great turnout of people, and a lot of them were ones that were former summer custodial helpers. So a lot of those other items, I have several staff that actually skilled that could do a lot of the minor painting. Anything that's going to be like a full-size classroom, at that point, generally I'll reach out to a outside contractor for bids on that. And then like some of this equipment, like those water heaters, that one was kind of brought to my attention because I knew we were running into troubles with service. And then it's like, okay, these units are 16 years old. We need to move into some kind of replacement program. I'm trying to get a lot of our equipment set that way. Obviously, I worked on it for many years, so I know where a lot of it sets. But, there's only so much we can take on. So I try to hit the main things. We definitely want hot water at the high school, for sure.
So what I'm hearing is you have $500,000 every year that Randy or somebody says, what's the best way to spend it?
Correct.
And then this is just it could be less concrete repairs if they grind it, so then you can maybe do something else, whether it be carpet or what else. But what do you do on a board, not a board, what do you do with, for example, we'll pick on Hoagland. The other day, I noticed that clocks don't work.
Yep.
Like, do you walk around with the principals at each building every year? How does that work?
We schedule the summer meetings with the principals. I'll send out the email. We'll go down through a lot of their wish items or a lot of their list. Unfortunately, a lot of their list at times are far bigger than I can do. Hoagland, I do have work on her clocks, though, so.
Nothing against clocks, just throwing that out there.
Just as an idea, though, for that.
Those meetings are in the spring to prepare for this list.
Correct.
Okay.
But say, for instance, like last year, I've been pretty close on my estimates for but say if I've got 70,000 in concrete repairs at Anson, like I've listed, and it's only 50,000, at that point, if I have one of the, say Lenahan's got 2 rooms of carpeting that I could replace. If we can get it done before the school year, I'll get it done then at that point, once I know where those numbers all fall. Quite a bit of these, I've already reached out and have several bids. So I've kind of got it lined up that we can get them all done this summer before school starts.
And we're giving local people options to bid on this, correct?
Correct. Yes, I always reach out to the local ones first, especially if I know it's something that they can handle with the timeline. But, you know, sometimes some of the projects are far too big for them, so then I have to reach out to neighboring contractors as well.
We also asked Chuck to help with gathering quotes on this concrete work also.
So,
Any other questions? If not, we need a motion to approve the summer projects list as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Wall, Faltus. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
all right, thank you all.
Have fun.
Kevin.
I just got up here early because this chair was so soft.
Look, you've been sitting in that other one for so long, you
last
thought
couple
maybe
hours.
something a little nicer.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging in. You bet. Okay, this first item is an amendment to the professional services agreement, and this is really to upgrade some air conditioning at the high school. I think everybody on the board knows that back in 2021, we did a air conditioning project to make sure every space was air conditioned, but there are some spaces that really aren't up to par, where there's equipment that's just not serving, or it's antiquated, or it's just not doing the job we hoped it would do. There's 3 areas primarily: the art spaces, the kitchen, really, kitchen and dining space. And I did provide kind of a description of, what those spaces are. That's that explanation, and kind of the timeline of how we got to where we were in the last project. But basically, this would... Media center also.
Media center, yeah, media center. This would provide air conditioning replacement, equipment replacement in those 3 spaces. It's not really replacement in the kitchen or the cafeteria, it's more enhancement, providing more. In 2021, what was done was the existing ductwork and air handling unit were left in place, but a large cooling coil was placed inside the duct that was there, and a condensing unit was added to the roof. That big duct serves the kitchen, the dishwashing area, with just a couple diffusers, but the main distribution is in the cafeteria. So the solution now is basically looking at adding multiple rooftop units. One rooftop unit in the art room, one in really the clay and pottery room of the art room. 2 new rooftop units in the media center. Those are direct replacements. And then the kitchen using a makeup air unit, a much larger, much more expensive unit that's in addition to the equipment that's there. So it's not replacing anything that's there. It's enhancing that. The strategy right now is really to work through the conceptual design of this far enough that the engineer can size this equipment, and then we can negotiate some pricing with Lennox and do a direct purchase. So we're working with equipment that Lennox provides, and that's the same thing we did back in 2021. And the hope is that we can get those ordered by end of summer, so that they're available for installation next summer. And then the rest of that document would be put together and put out to bid end of this calendar year. So there'll be new ductwork, all the electrical that goes with it, gas piping, condensate piping, roofing work, ceilings where ceilings have to come down. If ceilings are coming down and they're old
and the lighting's old, the new ceilings will go up with new LED lighting. It just depends on the space.
So I think in essence what occurred was when these areas had air conditioning and most of the building didn't, there was an assumption that things are relatively okay. And so we focused on providing air conditioning to where there wasn't air conditioning. We didn't really focus a lot on where there was air conditioning. We did at Anson when we did the reboot there. But once the air conditioning was operational, I think it became vividly apparent the lack of efficiency in the other areas. And so I was getting communications like, what are you doing talking about the high school having air conditioning? No, we don't have good air conditioning. And so while we still have the availability of some ESSER funds to devote to this, I really think we should take a look at it and see if we can get all of the high school working as efficiently and effectively as possible. And chances are ESSER would fund a portion of this, and then we would use saved dollars to do the rest. We would not want to incur expenses through Davis-Bacon on
Right, so.
this project.
Right. So using the ESSER funds to make the purchase is the best strategy because there's no labor involved. The Davis-Bacon, as we know from the 2021 project, added 17 to 18% to the overall cost of that project. But if we only use it for purchase, then we don't incur that. Keep it as a totally separate purchase.
And they were great when I bought the units during for both projects, when I bought those 3 units. They were great to work with. And then even when we set on which contractors were going to be doing it, then they worked directly with them too. So, I think it went rather smoothly, and obviously it benefited us to buy direct that way.
So as a district, we have option 1 and option 2 for the kitchen. What is, folks from the district level, what are you recommending to the board? Option 1 or option 2 for the kitchen?
There were 3 options that KCL.
I know, but poor, we won't go there.
Yeah. All right. We're suggesting that you do option 1. We think that's going to be a much better solution, and it's going to give you a lot more flexibility in how much air conditioning you provide, and it's going to help you manage the exhaust better. Because when you're in the kitchen, you have that enormous hood.
The steam dishwasher.
Right. So it costs substantially more, but you know that solution's going to work. And it's going to work when the hood is running at its full capacity. The other one's going to just get you partway there, I'm afraid.
The other one's just going to barely keep people from passing out.
The other, we might be discussing it 10 years from now.
Yeah.
But at this time, we're engaging you through an amendment to do the work necessary to be positioned to go out to bid.
To do that.
Simultaneous with the CTE project.
Correct. Assuming all those phase approvals are made as we go. So it's really to approve us to go forward with this piece. The first thing that'll happen that you'll be committed to is then obviously the direct purchase of the rooftop units and the makeup air unit. And if the CTE first approval, that project gets first approval, we might even be able to add some of the rooftop equipment that would go for the new science labs and the new building trades, taller space, so that that could also be bundled in using ESSER funds if you wanted to do that. That decision won't get made until when you have to make it to place that order.
But mainly we need the engineering side of it to know which
Right.
units we should be directed towards.
So we need a motion to approve the amendment to the professional services agreement with FEH Design to to replace or enhance existing heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems at Marshalltown High School.
So moved.
Second.
Lowry Faltus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
You want to talk through the change orders, Kevin?
I can do that. Pull them up. I can talk through them. The change order number one is a credit. And everybody likes that, right? That's the big credit that's related to when we went back to Larson Construction and said, hey, we're quite a bit over budget here. We've got some strategies. Tell us what you think about this. There were 4 things that they identified. Well, they identified about 20 different things.
Yeah.
And we accepted 4 of those. 2 of them, one of them was just Van Manen Electric as a subcontractor, just said, we'd like to give this much money, and we're not going to change anything. We just want to make a donation to the project. Yes. And Larson Construction did the same through a subsidiary that owns the grandstand, the company that's doing the grandstand. So they provided a large credit as well. You can see the numbers there. So number one was a fencing component. We got a more detailed number on that. IEP, that is a company that's tied to the general contractor. That's for the grandstand. And then the visiting bleacher is a strategy, a different way to approach how that would be built. Instead of just letting it kind of cantilever off the back of the hillside, it's filling it in so that it can all be constructed on a concrete pad. All in all, it's a credit of, I believe, $147,000. So that's a good thing. Didn't expect there would be any concerns with that one. And then we have several other smaller ones. And these are, well, this is a bigger one. This one's fill material. So your asphalt track was much thicker than anyone imagined it would be. When the geotech did borings, they looked at, what's the subgrade?
No, I don't care.
Nobody took a core sample of the asphalt of your track. There's some locations where it's 18 inches thick. Right?
Yeah.
So we knew it was thick.
I think I heard thicker, like 20,
Yeah,
22.
it was 2 foot at
22,
least in
yeah.
some.
Yeah.
Why?
So-
Why do you?
We knew that asphalt had been put on top of asphalt, but we didn't know it was 24 inches thick. Nobody knew that. The contractors bid it, assuming it was 4 to 8 inches thick, a couple lifts over time. Well, what that means is they had more asphalt to haul off-site. And they had another 1.5 foot of fill to bring onto site. It wasn't in their bid. So this is a big number, but it's essentially taking material off the site and then bringing material back onto the site because of the thickness of the track. So that's what this one is for. This number is going to come out of that $147,000 credit that you just saw. So this is a big one. We don't expect any more big ones like that. Number 4. This one is fencing. So this is Century Fence basically coming back and saying we want to change from galvanized to black vinyl. We have some of the fence as black vinyl, the fence that's around the track, but fence that is under the bleachers was galvanized. The fence that is around the discus and shot put areas for safety, I believe, was also galvanized. So this is to go from that galvanized fence to a much nicer looking, a little last longer black vinyl fencing, so it'll match what was done at the racket complex and it'll match what's around the track. So we don't have to do this one, but this is an ad of about $11,000 to do that black vinyl on
I think the
everything.
recommendation was to decline that one.
Right, so that one, I would say your recommendation, Dr. G, looks like is to deny that one, number 4.
Under the bleachers, our thought was, the bleachers are all aluminum.
Yeah.
So it's going to be bare metal. So having the kind of silver metal on the fence under the bleachers is probably okay. And the stuff back by the shot put in the discus is far enough away that we thought it's probably not that important to be the black vinyl. So the number came in quite a bit higher than we expected it to. And they had initially offered a credit to us during value engineering for fencing that was a substantial number. The final credit that came back was maybe 60% of that number.
Yeah, it wasn't.
So we thought, well, I think something might have been overlooked here. So we didn't really think it made sense to add another 10,000 to the fencing. These are doors. What was the change on this? It was pretty
It was
minor.
the sweeps. I think it needed the sweeps and the,
This is the press box.
yeah.
This is the press box doors. So how weatherproof do we want the press box doors? So we add a little bit of weatherproofing to those doors. Pretty minor thing for 301.92.
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that if all of these that are being recommended are accepted, we have about $8,000 left in the contingency, but in our discussions Thursday at the construction meeting, we should be beyond. Everybody was in agreement that the primary areas of concern relative to change orders are done because they're pretty much done with the underground stuff and getting the foundations in.
Yeah, the foundation for the scoreboard might be one that comes up. Don't know yet because that's kind of in that ravine. So we'll find out for sure when that's completed. They've issued RFIs asking for exact dimensions so they can locate goalposts, scoreboard, things like that. Dimensions are on the drawings, but they want to make sure. This is another one for the discus area. So this came as a result of coaches seeing other complexes. This one is we have 4 discus stations in a row, and we had basically kind of a octagon shape around them with fencing. So the fencing kind of captures them in, and the student athletes would have to walk around to the front of those. This is to add 2 gates to the 2 center ones, so they don't have to walk around the front of somebody else who might be just warming up or practicing, but can come in from the back. And where there are 2 together, and the fence kind of does this between them, eliminate 2 and just put 1. So it's really the cost of adding 2 gates. Adding gates is more expensive than you think because you have to add a post on either side and some subframing and a foundation for that post. So it's really adding 2 gates. We do recommend you do this. The coaches really wanted this for safety.
Yeah, and they've been very highly engaged from the beginning of the planning for this project, so.
Yeah.
And you said it was a request from the coaches?
Yeah, they saw a complex like this and thought, hey, it was really nice with the fences. It's not anything they had thought of. It's not anything we'd thought of. We typically don't do 4 discus stations in a row. It's going to make the field events go much, much faster and be much more efficient. So it's going to be a great addition.
You can actually safely practice
Right.
while somebody was throwing or warm up, so.
Yeah.
Questions about any of these items?
So then that leaves us 80,000 in contingency.
8,000.
Yeah, I have a question. I don't understand that. If we put 147 back in, does that go back into contingency or where does that go?
We had a contingency allowance of, I believe, 75,000 built into the contract. So of the 75, you lose the 64 and then a couple more thousand. That's the 8,000 that we're talking about, but you still have the $147,000 credit. We we see that as a credit, but you also have to look at it and say, we're hoping to get that 147 to bring the overall cost of the project down.
Okay, so that's where the 8, because
Right.
you said 8 earlier, and I'm looking at the
Mhm.
80 here, and I was confused.
I wasn't looking at the
Perfect.
credit as contingency.
Okay,
I
perfect, got it.
wasn't just saying that that's part of contingency either.
Okay, got it.
But
Dr. Schutte, on the fence behind are we talking about the fence right behind the grandstand that we're looking at doing?
Yeah, that was fencing just for security purposes to keep people out of under the,
Will we look at the
bleachers.
park like a trailer or something other at one time, or storage, or?
we looked at constructing a storage building
Okay.
under the bleachers at one time.
there's a space now where, like, it's big enough that the band trailer could be kept under there if they so chose.
With this fence, could they still now, or no?
The fence has gates in it, but we didn't designate any specific place. It's so that they can they can put the hurdles under there or things like that. But it's not really specifically designed to bring a specific trailer underneath at this point. But we do have a large gate that would be big enough to bring a trailer in. On the west side, behind that kind of new standing area, covered area that has a shade structure. So you could bring a trailer in there.
Could kids climb underneath this, basically stuck inside this fence, or?
The fence is 8 feet tall,
Yep.
and it goes all the way to the ground. So you could roll maybe a tennis ball under it, but you're not going to sneak underneath the fence.
But under the seats, you go and crawl under the seats and down.
The new codes mean that the risers have to be solid.
Okay.
So you can't just climb under your seat anymore, like old bleachers.
Okay.
They're supposed to be solid or a screen so that you can't get through. But rain will get through.
Yeah, rain can get through, but
No,
they're not
small
gonna squeeze
children,
through or.
no. Yeah, or,
Kevin, we still have the area under the bleachers that originally was going to be storage facility, right?
yeah,
So that's what we were talking
you could put a
about.
trailer in there.
Right.
Yeah, you could. Yep, the gate is right there so that you could take things in. You could, the high jump pit, whatever, you could take it all in there, or a trailer. Unless it was a really enormous trailer. But yeah, there's definitely room for that.
Back a trailer in there and unhook it.
Yep.
Anything else? If not, we need a motion to approve change order number 1, change order number 3, change order number 5, and change order number 6, and to reject change order number 4 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
McGinnis, Lowry, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
The next item, at the suggestion of our attorney from Allers, is to set a public hearing date for the next board meeting, which would be, or prior to the next board meeting, which would be July 19th for the purposes.
June 19th.
Or June 19th, sorry. For the purpose of consideration of a lease with Alliant Energy for purposes of a solar field at Bicentennial Park. That would be the first step of a number of steps that will need to take place if we get approval, because we'll have to also work with the city to seek rezoning of that area. But Sean and I have been meeting with Alliant representatives and their attorneys and our attorney to come to mutual agreement on the lease provisions. And our attorney is fairly confident that we'll hopefully have that mutually agreed upon documents such that we can publish and move forward on consideration of it on June 19th.
Does the district not have Juneteenth off, or is that not a holiday?
What's the question?
Juneteenth, do we not?
It is not here. Yep. I think it is at Iowa Valley or MCC.
Any questions about the public hearing? If not, is there a motion to approve the resolution fixing a public hearing on the proposed lease agreement with Alliant Energy for June 19th, 2023 as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Lowry, Faltus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin, you almost made it to the very end. You might as well stick around.
Came from Chicago, too.
That was a long drive.
Policies.
It'll be a long night.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, policies. We have 4 policies coming back that were recommended to be amended from the last meeting. Jan had these policies, so 507.11, students with pediculosis. 507.12, life-threatening allergies. 507.12R, life-threatening allergies regulation, and 507.10R1, weather-related school closings, delays, and early dismissals regulation. All of these are as you saw them under review. I would recommend approval of those 4 policies and waive the second reading.
Are there any questions? And then kind of a motion to amend 507.11, 507.12, and 507.12R and waive the second reading.
So moved. Second.
McGinnis, Faltus, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. And then a motion to adopt 507.10R1 and waive the second reading.
So moved.
Faltus, Hernandez, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Motion carries 7-0. Bonnie.
Okay, I had 9 policies.
Just
throwing it out
just,
there.
just a casual 9.
Putting it out
No
there.
big deal. Just letting you know.
But it's
Nine
nice
tonight at
that
8:21.
folks do a lot of work for us, so that's awesome. The first policy that we're going to talk about is 508.5, which are activity ticket funds. And there was some added verbiage to this particular policy, and it was to add the language to reflect the district practice of offering K through 6 students activity tickets that admit them for free if they're coming with their parents. And so it's been recommended that this be the first reading and it comes back to you all. Okay? The rest of these that we're going to talk about, there were very few changes. And so the recommendation would be to be marked as reviewed. In 508.6, the use of bicycles, there were absolutely no changes to that at all. 800, the objectives of buildings and sites. There weren't any verbiage changes, but there were updates for cross-references there. So it's still been recommended that we just mark as reviewed. 801.1, the school facilities long-range planning was given a new title, and it's now called Buildings and Grounds Long-Range Planning. There were no changes to the verbiage. However, there were updates to the legal and cross-references. 801.2, school facilities, also given a new title. Oh, it's a survey. Also given a new title, Buildings and Grounds Survey. No verbiage changes within the policy, but updates with regard to cross-referencing, and of course, then the new title. 801.3, the educational specifications for buildings and sites. There's nothing there, so I don't know exactly. Oh, there it is. No changes, once again, just the legal and cross-reference updates. Then we go into site acquisition, no changes at all, of 801.4, just updated cross-references. 801.6, naming of facilities, there were no changes at all. And then the last one, 801.7, financing sites and construction. With that, there were no changes except for updating the playground levy to be PERL, P-E-R-L. And so with those changes, we would just say that the first amendment, first comes back for your approval next meeting, and the remaining 8 be marked as reviewed.
Any questions for Bonnie?
I have a question on 508.6 bicycles. Can you tell me why, like, how do we get to this here with like, they have to be within 6 blocks to ride to school? Can we eliminate that?
I would have to do further research with the elementary principals who may have more experience with that. It was before my time with
Okay,
that.
I'd like to see kids be able to ride their bikes to school. Just a thought.
And actually, it would be better exercise if they were going more than 6 blocks.
Well, it says they have to live more than 6 blocks
Oh,
to
they have
ride.
to live more than 6 blocks. Oh, I see.
I think the assumption is they could walk.
If they're, oh, okay, that would make sense. Then they would be getting more exercise by walking.
Right, I think in part it was a space issue, right? There's only so much, and a lot of the elementary schools, for instance, don't have bike racks.
I don't see many kids biking to school.
Yeah, I don't.
And if they really wanted to, they can get permission from the principal to do it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if it's out there to let the parents know that if they want to, they can, but.
How far is it?
5 blocks.
Well, it depends on how they go. I mean, surely there's a route they could take, Zach.
Can you add a block somewhere?
All right, I'm good.
You're wanting to shorten one of the shortest policies that we have in the book. All right, I'm going to cover a few of these, and then I'm going to let Randy help me share the love. Okay, so 200.4, board members' social media engagement. This is a new recommended policy by ASB, just to help provide a legal framework and some guidance without inhibiting individual rights of board members in terms of how to engage the community with social media. That would come back to you. Then we had a couple policies in Nora's arena. One with records regulation with personnel that was adjusted to meet current law. That is 401.5R1, employee records regulation. And then 407.2, resignation of certified personnel. We'll have a new title, licensed employee contract release, and really it talks about the district's ability to charge resigning employees reasonable costs related to replacement after contract's been issued. So those will come back for a first reading. 501.2, non-resident students. This was an update per recommendation of DE guidance and ISB. That would come back. 604.6, instruction at a post-secondary education institution. This was a recommended adjustment to provide greater clarity about students' ability to accrue credit through courses offered in the high school. And then we have 3 policies which are new policies or new regulations and exhibits that are in the food service arena that we had Len Large look over. 710.1R1, school nutrition program, civil rights complaints procedure. 710.1E1, school nutrition program, notices of discrimination. 710.1E2, child nutrition program, civil rights complaint form. All of those are new, recommended by ASB. Large reviewed them and agrees, and those would come back for a first reading to adopt as new. Any questions on any of those? Randy, you had a bunch
Yay.
to review.
203, Board of Directors Conflict of Interest. This is due to recent legislature changes with regards to the amounts that board members can earn from a school district before, getting that conflict of interest comment. In an audit report, previously our policy was 6,000. The law has raised it to 20,000. The recommendation on the table is 10,000. So bringing that policy back for first reading to amend. I guess to answer the question as to why settling on 10,000, that's just the prior audit experience and me as with a district of this size and this size of budget, usually $10,000 or greater is what would flag an auditor's interest. So that is the reasoning for that amount there. And it's also middle of the road. So next one, 210.5. Again, this is updating for language that was reinforcing an interpretation recently from the Iowa Public Information Board regarding publication of meeting agendas and public notices and things of that nature. Recommend bringing that policy back first reading to amend based off of the policy language recommended by IASB. Next, 504.5 and 504.5 R1 are also updates. This is based off of updated DE guidance that was put out by the Department of Ed along with the high school associations and the state auditor's office about a year ago regarding policies and procedures around student fundraising. So recommend bringing both of those policies back, bring 504.5 back, first reading to amend, and then 504.5 R1, bring back for a first reading to adopt. 701.2, this is also updated language based off of recent legislation. There's a flexibility fund that was put in place about 5 or 6 years ago by the legislature. Fortunately, we have not had to utilize that, but this is just additional language outlining all the additional categorical funds that could be qualified, I guess would be the best word to put towards those flexibility funds. So recommend bringing that one back first reading to amend. 704.6, online fundraising, again, similar to the 704.5 policies with that DE guidance that was put out about a year ago with updated recommendations around student activity funds and just fundraising in general. Recommend bringing that one back first reading to amend. 708 and 708 R1, essentially these are basically being combined down into just one policy of 708. So recommendation is to delete the current iteration of 708 Board of Directors records and then changing 708 R1 over to 708. And there's also updates that were recommended by AASB and just auditing guidelines as far as how long to keep records. Recommend bringing that policy back first reading to amend. And last one, 901, public examination of school records. This is again related to recent legislation that was passed. I think this one was passed about a year ago. This requires just more updated guidance on what school districts are allowed and not allowed to charge as far as fees and attorney fees for public records requests. So recommend bringing that one back first reading to amend with the language changes as recommended by IASB.
Any questions?
I did have a question. For 210.5, is this saying we have to print the agenda and put it on the outside, physically on the outside of the building as the notice for a meeting?
I don't think you have to put it physically on the outside. So like if we were to put it on the front door on the inside window so that someone walking up could see it.
If we're closed.
Right.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, just it has to be visible essentially.
At the building itself? Okay.
Yeah, it's
And
still,
that's
it's a little
the-
old school still.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
Although it is helpful if someone's approaching a building and they're not sure where they're going, it helps to have the sign there. I mean, even if they've seen it posted, this is where the meeting's happening, it helps to have it, where you can see it. It makes sense.
It does say on the outside of the building if the building's locked. If it's physically closed.
And on the exterior facing door or window, so that community members may see the agenda. So the idea is that it's visible.
On the building. That's so, okay. Got it.
Sort of like the menus on restaurants.
So we,
I mean, when they put them there so you can see them when you walk past the restaurant.
Just clarification.
we got to post every, I mean, the legal profession, right? I mean, notices, we publish notices, we post them on doors. It's old.
Got it.
We can delete 708 this evening if we want to. Be one less to bring back.
We
Let's
could.
do it.
All right, is that a motion then, Leah?
I am motioning to delete 708.
And I'll second it.
Hey, Stanley McGinnis, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. All right, 708's deleted. The rest of them, though, are coming back.
So Randy, on that, not to belabor the posting on a door, but I'm assuming.
Can we go back to talking about bicycles?
I'm assuming.
And 6 blocks.
I'm assuming we can
Make it
post the
5.
short form agenda and not the detailed agenda?
Correct, yeah, it can be the short form agenda, yes. Yep.
We do
The
that now.
outline.
Well, that's a new policy.
That was the new part.
Yeah, that's the new part.
That's the new
Window
part.
space to post our agendas.
I'm sorry, say that again.
We'll
Do we have
just,
enough window space?
it'll just
Yeah, I think
be-
it could go where the windows are, like, just on the front door downstairs, yeah.
But it'll just be really an outline of the topics, not the detailed
Not the
agenda.
whole.
Not, yeah, not the whole.
That's what why I was
The short-
asking.
Yeah, the short agenda, yeah.
Yeah, that was the new part.
Yeah, that was the change to the policy. We didn't have to do that before. Now we do. Yeah. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? All right, looking at reminders. It's not before the next meeting, but the Welcome Center ribbon cutting is June 27th. As it's not in here, but as Jackie told us this evening, summer graduation for the high school is June 29th. Zach's?
Also the date of the chamber banquet.
Yeah, it's also June
Same
29th.
time.
Okay.
Same time?
5 PM.
They're both at 5 PM?
Yes, ma'am.
That's going to be a problem.
I haven't.
Zach's got policies for next time. And let's see, our next meeting is June 19th. Finance Committee's meeting next week on
14th.
Wednesday. And ACER's meeting next, 2 weeks, Monday. Anything, committee reports, Equity Committee met the end of May. Anything from the Equity Committee?
I wasn't able to attend.
Me neither.
Equity? Dr. Ryan, anything from the May 25th Equity Committee meeting?
Yeah, 27 seconds, start.
Go.
Yes, we met and we had guest speaker Margaret Buckton come. And she is, as I call her, one of our fiercest advocates at the state, she's a lobbyist. She spoke to us about recent legislation that impacts K-12 districts. It was really informative, great presentation. And then we wrapped up with a conversation. We created a flyer and sent that out to everyone on Infinite campus and soliciting people for the group next year. And I have had a really great response from students, and that's what we were really missing this year. And already I think we have 4 or 5 students on board for next year. So if anyone's interested in the Equity Committee, please let me know, and we would love to have you. Thanks, done, time.
Good job.
Thanks, Nora.
She won the prize.
I didn't even ask.
Don't give us the opportunity.
All right, what have we done this evening to improve education for the students in Marshalltown?
I love the hands-on
Industrial
tech, like just seeing some of the stations that are included with that curriculum makes me want to go learn how to do some of that stuff.
I think we'll
mean,
definitely need a tour to see that.
That's
For
really
sure.
cool.
So, I think with our community and students not wanting to go potentially to college and wanting to go more into trades, that really should get kids excited about opportunities that they could have and alternate career paths. And so that's exciting to me.
I think so, I agree. And actually, the move they're making in science toward a more hands-on and where the students are asking questions, that's getting kids excited about science in a way I hadn't really seen for a while. I mean, I've just seen its effect on students, and I think it's the right move to make.
Being Bobcat College and career ready, I think it's really important that the discussion that we started having tonight is finding a way now to help involve students in their planning and how to have them, and parents, to help them along to be, so our percentages are higher than 60%. I think that would be awesome.
Yes.
Spent a lot of money on technology. And as Zach, as you pointed out after Amy went through her presentation, it's nice to see all of the stuff together that you're working on in that arena. So that was nice. Anything else? Take a motion to adjourn then.
So moved.
Second.
Stanley Faltis, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
It's over. Just what you said.